I step back behind the tank, and then I get shot. The bullet hit me in my calf, just went right through my calf. And then the guys, they start screaming like, get up, because I'm looking at my leg going, all right, is my leg snapped in half? I'm like waiting for the pain to set in. I'm like looking for blood. I'm in some sort of momentary shock because I just got hit. And we're getting fired on from the flanks. ISIS is dumping mortars on us. This is like a suicide mission.
The Black Rifle Podcast starts now.
So you went to Buds with him?
Yeah. I went to do Buds with and SQT with Mr. Ballin.
Oh, okay. Does he have his like real name out there, or is it
It's John Allen.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. He talks about it publicly. Yeah. He when he I forget exactly how he got started. He was like one of the first dudes to like really get into TikTok, like when it first started, as he started doing storytelling on TikTok, and so he just went massively viral, moved people over to his YouTube channel, and he just blew up from there. I think Amazon bought his podcast and all that stuff. Yeah.
It's awesome. I was down in California not too long ago, which I tend to stay out of just in general, just for a combination of reasons. And I met a guy. I was working on a different deal. I met a guy that represented him, and he was like, "Hey, would you guys?" And I was like, I'd never even heard of him. And it wasn't because like that's definitely not me being a dick whatsoever. I just don't spend a lot of time on social media, which is somewhat weird because considering like what I do and who I do it for, but I just don't because I find it fucking just a nauseating, like incompetent gaggle of morons most of the time.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I do like, I love making content. Like I love making content.
Post and ghost, as Rogan says. Post and ghost.
But then I went down the rabbit hole. Like,
okay.
Then I went down the rabbit hole and I was like, this guy's awesome. Like, his stuff is really, really good.
Yeah.
And like, I like how it's diverse, not like, progressive diverse. It's like he's got these mysteries that he unpacks. And I was just watching this whole thing that he did the other day on this Japanese island and kind of how they had these hidden secrets or whatever. I was like, fuck, this is fascinating, dude.
Yeah,
so,
it is. Yeah.
Super cool guy.
Strange, dark, and mysterious. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were saying before we went on air that Donut Operator was in the same
was in the Buds class,
or whatever?
Yeah.
No kidding. I had no idea. Yeah, that's very interesting.
It's a small. It gets to be a small world at times.
Super small world. Yeah, and then we're talking about before. Yeah, Mr. Ballin John did a video. Navy SEAL goes rogue in Iraq. That brought us a lot of attention for my organization, Stronghold Rescue Relief, which was really cool.
So what was that all about? Like I didn't watch that video because. To be fair, when I see thumbnails like that, I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
I always look at like, whatever. What was that all about?
Well, yeah, that's a perfect way to jump into it. So I was in the teams from basically 2010 to 2017. And then I got out and basically I went over to the Middle East to volunteer with other American volunteers just as a civilian. I was still technically in the Navy for the first like 30 days that I was over there in Iraq. I just took leave and just left. Yeah.
You're on terminal leave. Yeah.
I wasn't technically on terminal leave. I was technically on regular leave. Oh. And I split it up to where like my leave would end on a weekend, and I just hoped they wouldn't call me in. That's because nice. I'm on the other side of the world at that point. Right. Yeah. So I went over there, and my intention was just to do humanitarian work, and just whatever I could do to help out. Obviously I'm a team guy, and so I'd love to. Obviously fight bad guys if the opportunity arises, but that wasn't my attitude when I went. It was very much, I want to help the people. And that goes back to some stuff that happened in Afghanistan, which we can unpack a little later. But when I got over there, I thought I would just kind of be doing some basic medical work, but the Iraqi Army had no medics. And so what ended up happening is all the volunteers, we ended up being, because we're TCCC, TCCC training, and so therefore we are the medics. And so we ended up being on the front line of the Battle of Mosul as the Iraqi Army was clearing Mosul of ISIS. And I was there for about 30 days. I was in the city of Mosul for 30 days until I ended up getting shot. And so during that time, we were running rescue missions, trying to get civilians out of wounded civilians, because ISIS was gunning down civilians like crazy. And the day I ended up getting hit, ISIS had massacred about 200 civilians approximately who were trying to flee the old city, the section of exactly. So they were trying to get out of there. They gunned down 200 people, but when we got to where the massacre happened the next morning, there were still like people alive. There was kids alive still, like in the piles of bodies, and it was like biblical level piles of bodies where you could tell people had been shot, and they were like climbing over the dead bodies, and then they were getting shot, and people were trying to climb over them. Men, women, kids, babies, pregnant women, everybody just slaughtered in the streets. And within that, there was like kids still like hiding in the bodies and like walking around, and ISIS could see them because ISIS was maybe 50, 75 yards away. They had taken over a hospital there, and that was sort of their headquarters at that time. And so we basically decided, okay, we got to go get some of these kids. While we were making a plan to get it done, 2 of the kids, I think, died from heat exhaustion, because I saw a little boy. He was a little Iraqi boy, maybe 7 or 8, and his sister was maybe 5 or 6. And we're sitting out there screaming at them to run across the street to us, because this massacre had happened on a highway, and so they just needed to run 75 yards and they'd be safe. They'd come right to us. If we go out there, ISIS is going to kill us. So I saw this little boy. He took a T-shirt or something, and this little girl. He had the little girl laid down on the ground. Keep in mind it's Mosul in June. Had her lay down on the ground, so it's extremely hot. Put a like a T-shirt over her face, I think, to shade her, and then he laid down next to her with nothing. And then the 2 kids never stood up again. And a few hours later, we launched a rescue mission to get one of the little girls who was like right in front of ISIS headquarters, like right there, like 50 meters away, hiding in a pile of bodies. And so we did basically we got the Iraqi Army to give us a tank, and we ran behind an M1 Abrams. So it was an American tank that driven by Iraqi soldiers, and they just drove straight up to ISIS headquarters. At the same time, the American military, we were actually able to call them, and they put a drone overhead, saw the massacre, and so they were willing to give us a smoke screen. So they were shooting airburst white phosphorus from some artillery battery somewhere nearby, and so they're giving this rough sort of smoke screen, which is 50% effective. And so 5 or 6 of us get behind this Iraqi Army tank. It drives straight into ISIS. Straight into ISIS headquarters, basically, and we're getting fired on from the flanks. ISIS is dumping mortars on us. This is like a suicide mission. It was in hindsight, I still don't know. I mean, it was. I know why I did it. I did it because we had to save this little girl, and just that that protective instinct. And this is the right thing to do. If we don't go, she's going to die. She's going to be dead. So we got up there. We were able to. One of the guys on the team, Dave, he ran out. He grabbed the little girl. That video went viral of him running out, grabbing the girl. Myself and another guy named Sky, we gave covering fire, and that 15 or 20 second clip went like uber viral, because there was a guy who was there filming war crimes and atrocities and things like that. And he went with us behind the tank, and so we're taking fire from high ground on both flanks, but they're firing relatively blindly through the smoke. And we also tried to get 2 men who had also been wounded. They'd been shot and were severely injured, and they were in the bodies as well. And so we pulled them out and started moving back. And the tank, we can't communicate with the tank. So the tank just starts backing up and through this killing field. And there's bodies. We're tripping over the bodies of the dead kids and everything. And we're trying to pull these guys back. So one guy, he was carrying the little girl. Another guy, Sky, he was carrying one of the wounded men. And then myself and a Kurdish interpreter, we were dragging a man on a tabletop that we had found in the middle of the street. Someone had clearly used it when they were trying to flee ISIS, and they had been killed. And so anyway, we had this tabletop. We're dragging him. Well, I turned around to give covering fire because the smoke was dissipating a little bit. And the man who was on the tabletop that we were dragging, he fell off the tabletop. He just slid off, and we couldn't pick him up and move him because he'd been severely shot like through the chest and shoulders. And so the tank was gonna just run him over. So I jumped over behind the tank, rolled him out of the way, and the tank missed him by basically the width of a hand. Just barely missed him. Keep in mind, there's incoming fire, mortars, both directions. And so I stepped back behind the tank. So I looked at the guy. And he looked back at me, so he's on his back, and he looks back at me. We make eye contact, and he's basically asking me, he's like, "Hey man, are you gonna come get me?" And I was like, I shook my head and I said, "I'm sorry." There was just no way, because if I go up in front of this tank, the tank. Keep in mind, the tank is also firing its main gun. None of us are wearing ear pro. This main gun is going off. I'm like, dude, if I go up there, I'm gonna get shot. if the tank doesn't kill me. So anyway, I step back behind the tank, and then I get shot from the flank, from our totally exposed right flank. Just a lucky burst of machine gun fire through the smoke. And all this is on video too, so it's like there's high definition video. I step back behind the tank, a burst of machine gun fire comes in, and I just go down hard. So the bullet hit me in my calf, just went right through my calf. So minor gunshot wound. I didn't know that at that exact second. So the bullet went through my calf, and then I fell down behind the tank. And then the guys, they start screaming like, get up, because I'm looking at my leg going, all right, is my leg snapped in half? I'm like waiting for the pain to set in. I'm like looking for blood. I'm in some sort of momentary shock because I just got hit. And then I turn around and I look, and the tank is still backing up, and I'm looking at the treads. The tank is as close as I am to you. Like the tank treads, and it's backing up. And so I just had to pop up and just keep going on the leg, threw a tourniquet on. We're tripping over the bodies of the dead as I'm like throwing a tourniquet on, walking backwards. So we get to the end of the street where we could run across this basically a 4-lane highway to get back to Iraqi Army lines.
Where were you guys at? Like give me some reference points because I'm super familiar with Mosul.
Okay. You know the Giant Hotel?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we were right in front of the Giant Hotel.
Okay.
And the Coca-Cola Pepsi factory,
Yeah.
right between that. That's the highway.
Oh, yeah.
And so then there's the hospital.
I know exactly where that's at.
Right on the Tigris River. Yeah.
Yeah.
That exact
Holy
road.
shit.
Yeah, and I can show you video of all this too later, so you'll recognize it. But yeah, the hotel had like collapsed. And so yeah, we're right in the highway, right between those two buildings. Taking fire from the hospital, which is right next to that fourth bridge.
Yeah.
And so we get to the end of this, we're basically right next to the Pepsi factory, and we have to run across the open to get back into cover. Well, so we can't move the patients because we're going to go too slow. And so we start screaming at the Iraqis. We're like, hey, send a Humvee. They're right there. They're 100 yards away with armored Humvees. We're like screaming at them. They can't hear us. They're not going to move.
Yeah.
Nothing's going to happen. So basically I started going lightheaded and I wasn't sure if it was from blood loss because I looked down at my leg and I had 2 holes in my leg and it was pumping bright red blood. So I was like, man.
It went through.
It went through.
And so explain to me the wound a little bit.
So it hit my calf. It entered the outside of my right calf and exited the inside of my of the calf. Yeah.
And so 760 by 39 or 760 by 54?
No, I think it was a 5.56.
Okay.
So ISIS was using NATO ammo. I'm
Interesting.
I'm 99% sure it was a 5.56 because if it was a 7.62, I feel like it would have blown my calf off. Yeah,
right.
But it just went right through it. I almost think it was like 5.56 armor piercing because it just poked a hole. Was it just green tap?
Right then it just poked a hole right through you.
I think so.
I had to be ball because like obviously if it just like was a straw going right through you,
it was like a straw, and then the exit wound was maybe the size of like a bottle cap.
Okay,
so it was maybe an inch, but it took off a good chunk. But yeah, so it missed the arteries, missed everything, missed the bones.
What's it feel like when you get shot? Like,
it feels like, at least in my case, it felt like getting hit by a sledgehammer. It's like someone just took a sledgehammer and just knocked my leg out from under me.
Right.
That's kind of what it felt like. And obviously there's that snapping noise as you know, of like bullets coming in. So that's why I wasn't sure if my leg had snapped.
Right.
I didn't know. As I'm processing this over the course of like 3 or 4 seconds right after I got hit, I'm like, is my leg intact? Does it work? Yeah. So
but what's it like? Like, so you get shot in the leg and now you have to use your leg. You have to apply weight on that.
Yeah.
What does that feel like? What is that like?
It burned.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine having a cramp, like a calf cramp. Mm-hmm. And then imagine that, but then like you take like a hot rod take like a poker out of a fire and just shove that right through your leg and then add a cramp on top of that. That's what it feels like. But again, your adrenaline's pumping. Obviously my adrenaline was pumping, and I was,
But you could still apply weight.
Yeah, because the structure of my leg was still intact. But yeah, it hurt. It hurt really, 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 really bad.
Have you ever had more pain in your life outside of that?
Yes, I had more pain in my life about 5 minutes later when they shoved iodine, when they twisted iodine soaked gauze into it to because there's dust and debris and that place is just swarming with flies.
So they twisted iodine soaked gauze
into the entrance and the exit
into your
yeah.
Did they? Who was doing that?
The other medics that were working there. So so we get to the end of the street and we have to cross no man's land, this 100 yards. And so I was going lightheaded. I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm going to pass out or not. I'm a big boy. There's no way these dudes are going to drag me out of here. We're exhausted. We've been up like for multiple days at this point as well, treating wounded. And so I was like, hey guys, I'm getting lightheaded. I'm going to run across the street and carry the message. So I hobbled as fast as I could across the street, and ISIS immediately opens fire. There was another journalist like in the rubble who filmed this thing and saw it as well. So that's on HD video. You can hear the snaps coming in. And then one of the guys who was there on the ground, he could see, you can't see it in the video, but he said he could see the bullets impacting like 2 or 3 feet behind me. Because ISIS they were taking good shots, but they just weren't leading me. So I get across the street and then I start screaming. I was like, we need a Humvee, we need a Humvee. And I see that they all finally, take action. And so then at that point I'm good to go. And then the other medics like just jumped on top of me and started shoving iodine-soaked gauze into my leg. So that was fun.
So you were with the Kurds, obviously.
No, Iraqi Army, actually.
You were with Iraqi.
Yeah, so the Iraqi Army.
So not obviously.
Yeah. No, we were inside Mosul, and so it would have been good to have the Kurds there, but the Iraqis didn't want to have the Kurds sort of enter into sort of traditional Iraqi territory, because even after the war's over, there's still going to be territorial disputes. So it was purely Iraqi Army, and we were just there volunteering, like helping those guys out.
How many guys were there? Like, we'll call it Americans. How many guys were there with you?
Man, it would vary because guys would come and go, and then you'd have.
Were there other team guys, like other guys that you knew, or were there guys like?
There were no other guys that I knew. There were 2 former SF guys, a Marine, two infantry Marines, 2 SF guys, myself, another Army officer who'd been in the what did he do? Not the cavalry. He'd been like a tank commander or something. So like that was like the core group of like frontline guys. There was a lot of other volunteers who would do medical stuff or would drive ambulances or other stuff kind of in the rear. But as far as like frontline dudes, there was just a handful of us who would do that. Yeah, who were doing that. So it definitely was not a lot. And we were just with one brigade of the Iraqi, armored. They're one of their armored divisions.
What was that like? I mean, I know that's a super complex question, but I mean, obviously you're coming out of what I would say is a more, conventional, even though it's an unconventional unit, then you're embedding yourself more with the Iraqi Army. And so you're almost a subordinate asset to the Iraqi Army at that point, right? So what's that like?
It was definitely took a bit of adjusting, but so like I said, I was still, during half of my time in Iraq, I was still technically in the Navy. And so going over there, it was the most difficult part was kind of putting my ego in check, right? Because some team guys have egos. I don't know if you've heard. No way.
I've never heard of that.
So I had to put my ego in check, and I had to realize pretty quickly that the SEALs do things one way, and like we do things very strategically in that particular way. That way everyone's on the same page. But that doesn't mean it's the right way to do it, or that it's the only way to do it, right? Like SF's going to have different, room clearing tactics. Rangers are probably going to have something slightly different, right? And so when you go working with the Iraqi Army, they have no tactics. There's no concept of safety, risk management. It just doesn't exist. And so that was a little bit difficult, but you just had to sort of like let yourself go. And we're just like, all right, if I die, I die. Just be as smart as you can. But not looking down on the Iraqis. That was a hard part too. At first was like how do you guys not know how to do such and such, like basic cover and move? Come on, guys. But then you realize like, hey man, they don't have the training. They're not lazy. They're not cowards. Because I was incredibly impressed with the Iraqi Army. I was shocked. The courage that these guys had. They would go out every single day, and out of a group of 30, 40 guys, 2 or 3 are going to die, like every day. And we're going to treat them, and they're going to keep moving. So it was definitely strange leaving the safety net and the umbrella that is the the U.S. military, and just being, hey, you can do whatever you want. It's the Wild West when you go over there. You can do whatever you want, but also no one's coming to get you. No one's going to come get you out. So you're on your own, and you're taking a huge risk, and you're not paid, and you're just there. I bought my own flight ticket over there, right? So it was definitely strange leaving that umbrella of security, and you can't call the aircraft to call in airstrikes, and you completely lose all of that. And so you had to really sit and think, okay, why am I here? Why am I doing this? What am I really willing to risk? Do I really want to be here? And so I had to go through that sort of mental evolution of making peace with what I was doing, why I was there. And it was a little bit of a struggle at the beginning.
Yeah, why? Why did you go over there?
Well, The real reason when it comes down to it, at my core level, and it's the reason why I run the organization I run today, Stronghold Rescue and Relief, is I just wanted to help the people who were caught in the middle who no one else was going to help. That's what I wanted to do. I joined the Navy because I wanted to fight bad guys, and I wanted to go to places other people weren't going to be willing to go. I wanted to take on tough missions, and I wanted to help. I know that sounds super stereotypical, but like that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to serve. And so when I was in the Navy, I had the opportunity to do that in Afghanistan, which was great. But during that deployment in 2014, I had an experience where I almost had to kill 2 little girls. They were wearing backpacks that were the exact same kind of backpack that we had just discovered an IED in about an hour earlier. So I don't know if they were actually suicide vests, but they were running straight at us. The Taliban had said, we intercepted radio communication. The Taliban said, hey, we're going to attack from the south. We're going to attack from the south. And they know that we're listening. And so then they send 2 little girls from the south with these same exact kind of backpacks on, running straight at me because I was the guy on security on the south. And I almost had to shoot them. I was screaming at them to turn around. They eventually turned around and left. But that experience totally changed like my thought process. And I realized like, wow, there's like little girls just stuck out here, you know? And I think about how scared I am. I'm a SEAL. I'm trained for this. I'm heavily armed. I've got a good crew of dudes, and we're gonna, and we're slinging lead and crushing souls. And it's awesome when we got the Air Force backing us up. And even then, under that, I still feel fear. And you know how it is. Like sometimes if you're pinned down at a bad situation, you're like, dude, I could die in like any second now. You focus and you do your job. But my thought was,
you're still scared.
Exactly.
Like anybody who's not scared is fucking lying, or they've got a mental problem.
Or they're a crazy person.
Yeah, they've got a mental problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So my thought is like, just imagine you're an 8-year-old, 10-year-old girl, and you have no idea what's going on. So that was part of my motivation for leaving the military, because I wanted to go to places where people needed help, and then to use my background in whatever way I could.
You're a corpsman?
No, I was not a corpsman. I wasn't. I was a JTAC radio man.
Oh, okay.
I did a little intel stuff as well.
Right.
But yeah, so I was not a corpsman, but I wanted to create an organization that could send guys with our backgrounds to go and help people who they'll never be able to pay you. Mm-hmm. They don't even know that like you exist. They don't even know like meaning like special operations guys. They don't even know that special operations guys exist. They just want someone to come help them because they're getting raped and murdered and slaughtered in their own countries, or they're facing, crime syndicates and things like this. They don't know what to do. They're caught in the middle of it. So if you can send guys over there to provide those services free of charge, to assist them, to help them, you're not there to get your gun on, you're not there to fight, but you'll stand with them if things go south while you're there. And that's what my organization, Stronghold Rescue and Relief, does. And I guess that's my motivation. I just wanted to be there to help people that no one else was going to be able to help. And that's why I ended up in Iraq, and that's why I ended up, starting my organization.
What happens when you're on leave and you get shot?
So
you're technically still part of the Navy.
So by that point, I was technically out of the Navy.
Okay.
So the first 30 days of like the 90 days that I was there, I was still active duty.
Okay.
And I was involved in combat during that time. But yeah, so that was something I thought about as well too. I thought, like I'm still IRR, individual ready reserve.
Right.
Like it's like, what does this mean? But
what does it mean? Like nothing?
I think it means
basically?
nothing. It means nothing. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
it was. You didn't get your Purple Heart for
no Purple Heart
for being in the Navy and being shot in Iraq, which is while fighting with the Iraqi Army.
Yeah,
so
fighting
technically,
yeah.
Technically, you could still probably get one, but you weren't under official orders. So.
Yeah, definitely wasn't under official orders. Yeah, and it's
who cares?
It is what it is. Who cares?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was definitely a life-changing experience.
What'd you do? Like, how did you recover? So, did you stay in Iraq to recover, or did you come home to the United States to recover from the injury?
So that's also an interesting, sort of fascinating experience. I want to talk about a weird experience. So after I got shot, I was taken in one of the ambulances run by the other volunteers, the American volunteers I was with, and they took me to the CCP, Casualty Collection Point, which was in a bombed out mosque. And so I go into the mosque.
Where were you at? In Mosul?
In Mosul still.
Okay.
Yeah. So
what area of town were you in?
Still like northwestern Mosul area.
Got it.
Yeah. I think.
So you're on the west side of the river.
West side of the river. Yep. Yeah. And so we were maybe 10 minutes away. The ambulance drove maybe 10 minutes to get me to the CCP.
Mm-hmm.
So I go in there, and there's Iraqi Army doctors, like doctor level doctors, working on me, and also Mennonite women in like the full like blue dresses with like the outfits on. Yeah, that's the same face I made. So there were Mennonites who were there who are pacifists. Like they don't believe in violence. They even if you're attacked, like they're not going to fight you back. They were there in Mosul volunteering to treat the wounded, and it's kind of mind blowing. So I get wounded.
This is like some Apocalypse Now type thing.
It doesn't sound real.
It doesn't sound real. Almost like you took a high dose of psychedelics and now you're in a Mennonite with Iraqi
in a mosque.
In a mosque.
In a bombed out mosque in Mosul. Yeah, exactly. So so they stabilized me and treated me and got me some painkillers and stuff, and they made sure that there wasn't any like major damage and everything was fine. So then that day, there was a group of Mennonites that were going back to Erbil. And so they said, hey, you can ride with us to go back to Erbil to get basically medevaced out of here. So you got to get you to a higher level of care. So I rode with them in a car through from Mosul up to Erbil, and then we went to a Kurdish hospital, and they dropped me off at the Kurdish hospital, and then the Kurds checked me out, and there were some other Western doctors that were there as well assisting the Kurds. And so I had to spend the night in a ward filled with Kurdish soldiers who had all been wounded in the fighting there in Iraq. And so the entire night, I was on the bed in the ward on the farthest edge, and there was guys there who were like messed up. They'd been shot like real bad, like dudes who were hurting. And so then I forget what time of day it was. They turned off the lights and was like, hey, it's time for bed. And then the doctors all left the ward. And they just had somebody on call. As soon as the lights went out, maybe like an hour later, like as guys are starting to like fall asleep, the screaming and crying, like I'll never forget it. So I'm just laying there in the dark by myself with a bunch of Kurds who are wounded, and they're screaming. A lot of these guys are screaming for their mothers, and they're weeping, and they're in like this excessive amount of pain, And my injury was very minor compared to most of these guys. And so in the middle of all that, I'm laying there, and then all of a sudden I see the door open at the far end of the hospital ward, and somebody comes walking in. It's a guy in a suit, and he's got a flashlight and a file, and he starts shining the flashlight on everyone's faces. And at some point, he stops shining it on people's faces, and then he just turns and shines the light all the way down and stops right on me, keeps the flashlight on my face, and walks straight up to me. And this is all in the dark, and I can't quite see who it is. There's this bright light in my face. And so the guy stands there, and he's like, "Are you Ephraim Mattos?" And he like pulls up this file. I was like, "Yep." And he's a Kurdish guy. He's like, "I'm from Kurdish intelligence. I need to ask you a few questions." And then I realized, I was like, "Oh, I look like I'm ISIS. Oh. I'm a white dude with a red beard, shot in Mosul, who showed up with the Kurds."
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was like, "I got to talk to you." And so he started basically asking me a bunch of questions, like, "Who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing?
Yep.
Show me your phone." Yeah. So I was like, yep. No worries. So I basically told him the same story I'm telling you right now, and explained sort of who I am, what I was doing, showed him photos and everything. And he eventually wrote down a few notes, and eventually just kind of sat there and listened to my story. And then he just said, "Hey man, thanks for helping us." And then he got up and walked out. And then the next morning they did a debridement on my leg. So I was wheeled into this little operating room, like a very first class, nice operating room. They gave me some anesthetic, not nearly enough anesthetic. And so the doctor who was going to do a debridement basically cut away all the dead, burned flesh and stuff from my leg, and to make sure that nothing was like rotten, so they could clean it all out. He's like, "Oh, you're Peshmerga." And I said, No, I wasn't with the Peshmerga. I was with the Iraqi Army. And he's like, No. He's like, "You don't know what Peshmerga means?" And he said, It's those who face death. And he's like, "You face death. Thank you for helping us." And it was like this like very kind, just sort of like, for lack of a better term, like just very sweet, gentle, like very sincere moment where this guy with his doctor was like, he said, "Thank you." And he said a few words in Kurdish and kind of explained to everyone else like who I was and what I was doing there. And then so all these Kurdish doctors, one by one, they each put their hand on me and said, "Thank you," in English. "Thank you. And then they knocked me out and clean me up. So really bizarre. So then I spent the next 2 weeks just sitting basically in one of the safe houses for the volunteers that were there. I spent 2 weeks there until the pain was to a level that I could travel, because I had to keep my leg elevated.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then I literally flew home to Chicago. I flew home I was going to Milwaukee, so I flew to Chicago. And my folks picked me up from the airport in Chicago, and then I spent the next few weeks just like stretching it out and and doing my own rehab. Yeah.
What do you tell your parents at that point? Like what is the explanation here?
So they knew that I was there. So I'd explained to them even before I went over to Iraq what I was going to go do, and so obviously they were used to this sort of thing from me, right? Like, okay, you're going to join the military. Okay, you're going to join the SEALs. All right, you've had a couple, close calls with death during your time just in training. You've had a parachute failure. You drowned.
What?
Okay, you've been to Iraq. You've been Afghanistan. So you've been through all this stuff, right? So like they're kind of used to that. So then when I say, hey, I'm going to go volunteer in Iraq. So my mother, she's the absolute like best woman. I call her the ultimate Spartan mother. So I told her that I was going to Iraq, and I called her on the phone and said, hey, Mom, I'm going to go to Iraq like next week, and I'm going to go volunteer and help out. And so she, of course, starts choking up. She's crying a little bit. And she just says, that's great. She's like, you go do what you need to do. You go help those people. That's what she said. That was her response. She never asked me not to go. She never asked me why, none of that. So, and I'd been keeping them updated on what I was doing. Actually, my brother, who was not a veteran, who'd never been in the military, he actually came out and volunteered as well, just as a driver, just to drive the ambulances. And so I'm super proud of him. He did a great job. He's taken direct sniper fire from ISIS snipers and stuff.
Shit.
Yeah, and he's just never been to war in his life, but he did a great job driving ambulances and moving wounded back. So my parents were very aware of like what we were doing. I just have the one brother, so both of us are there. And so the funny thing is, when I got shot, there's no OPSEC, there's none of that. Like, it's going to go. I knew there was cameras and stuff. I was like, oh my goodness, like my mom's going to think. The last thing I need from my mom is to get a text from somebody, hey, your son just got shot, and then no further information. Right. I don't need her panicking, thinking I'm dead for a few days or for an hour or even a minute.
Yeah.
So I messaged her. So I actually had cell signal from the east side of Mosul, because East Mosul had already been cleared, so they had cell phone towers back up, and I have an international plan with T-Mobile. Yeah. So I literally pull out my phone. I was like, hey, Mom, everything's good. I forget if I called her or if I texted her. I don't remember, but I communicated with her basically when I got to the mosque. I was like, hey, just I've been shot. I was shot in the calf. Everything's fine. It's all good. But I said I've been shot in the calf. My mother, she's the funniest. Without skipping a beat, so I say I got shot in the calf, and she goes, "Oh, but at least you didn't get shot in the bull." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about? Calf, bull?" Yeah. That was her immediate comeback. Yeah.
That's a solid mom.
That's a
solid mom
great
to
mom.
be like, at least you didn't get caught or get shot. That's a solid comeback for a mom.
Yeah,
like,
it's
fantastic.
Like,
for her to say that, like, versus like, oh my gosh, what are you doing?
Yeah, no panic. Yeah. She was great. So yeah, my parents were
Had you been shot before or wounded?
No. That was my first time. I'd had a couple times though, like when I was going through the SQT, SEAL qualification training.
It's no big deal.
No big deal. Yeah. Whatever. Autographs later. I like had a parachute malfunction on my 11th jump. So
so like that's worth us unpacking. So
your
11th jump in free fall. So you've already gone through. Did you go through the accelerated course? That's
the 5-day
progression,
static
blah,
line.
blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So were you where were you at, Yuma, or were you?
No, I was in San Diego.
Okay, you're in San Diego.
I was in San Diego doing free fall. And so I was the first jumper out of the first plane that day, and it was my 11th jump. So just a lot of ones there.
Yeah. So
we go up, and we're doing a sort of a group jump. So 5 guys jump out, and then you all try to land at the same time. Okay. So pretty standard training jump. And so I jump out of the plane, and my instructor, he came up to me. He's like, I'm not gonna. He's like, don't tell anybody this. He's like, but I want you to pull like 500 feet lower than normal. He's like, because I want you to lead the team in. He's like, I want you to be a little bit lower so they can kind of follow you in. I was still, instead of pulling at like 6,000, he was having me pull like 5,000 or like 550 or something. Like, so it wasn't a big.
It's not crazy.
No.
You're not pulling at like 25 or something.
No, nothing like that. And we're jumping the big 2. Was it the MT2 XX?
Right.
Big military rigs.
Like a giant thing. Yeah. You could land a fucking Abrams underneath it.
Exactly. So I jump out of the plane. I go through my procedures, watch my altimeter wave off, and I pull my chute. Well, up until that point, every single time I had gone through the procedure properly, and after you pull your chute, then you go to check your canopy, right?
Yeah.
Well, this time I didn't check my canopy because my chute deployed and I got pulled vertical.
Okay.
And so I was like, cool.
Yeah,
and
cool.
I was like, I don't even need to check my chute. So I went to stow my ripcord, but then I was like, there's too much wind going up my nose. Why is there so much wind going up my nose? And so then I look up at my canopy, and it's just a big pile of trash.
It's a pile of shit.
Pile of laundry. And I was like, and I remember when I looked up at it, I honestly got mad. I was like, dude, are you kidding me? I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, dude, no. So I'm sitting there still falling. I'm watching this, and I'm staring. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So like I'm staring at it, and I'm slowly going through my emergency procedures, which you're supposed to do quickly. But I'm just like, okay, look red, grab her, and looks over, grabs over. I literally took a deep breath, waited for it to open. I was like, nope. So I had to go through the discard procedures, go back into free fall, and then deploy the second chute. And so luckily the second chute opened. That was like the longest 4 seconds of my life waiting for that second chute to open. And then when it did open, I went to grab my risers to start taking control of the chute. And my hands were shaking so bad from the adrenaline. My hands were shaking so bad. I literally couldn't grab the risers. Like mentally I felt very calm, but like my body was just in like full, full shaking mode. So I had to like hook my thumbs in, and I had to like hook the risers around my wrist and then pull them out. So I kind of went into like the spiral as I was like getting control. So it was fine. I ended up landing. So as I came in, I landed it. Well, the other guys in the stack who were following behind me, they had been following me. They saw me in free fall deploy my chute. They saw the chute tangled, and then they saw me cut away. So the guy who was right behind me, he saw the whole thing. Well, the guy who was like 2 or 3 guys back, he didn't see me deploy my second chute. He just saw my first chute fall off the drop zone and land off the drop zone. So keep in mind, he's only got 11 jumps too, or 10 jumps.
So he's following the first chute?
So he thinks I'm dead. And we were roommates at the time. So he thinks I'm dead. He thinks I just burned in. So he actually goes off the drop zone, off mission profile, and starts circling me, considering landing with me. And then at the last second, at like maybe like 500 feet, he comes in and just does like a full-on bank back into the drop zone and barely pulls it in. Like totally could have paralyzed himself because he just did like a low level.
Was this in San Diego?
In San Diego, yeah.
Was it the DZ up there? What is it, Skydive San Diego?
Skydive San Diego.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
I jumped up there. It's fucking awesome. It's a great DZ. So did you come in right on the DZ then?
I was able to come in right on the DZ. I landed just fine.
Where did your chute land?
My chute landed in sort of the mountain off to the south.
Okay.
Toward the Mexico border.
Yeah,
so my buddy kind of went over there, started circling it, and then at the last second he banked in.
Got it.
And came in and landed. And so the instructor who had followed us out of the plane to watch the whole jump and everything, he goes over to my buddy Mikey and he starts screaming. I was like, Mikey, what the hell, man? You got to kill yourself. And he's screaming at him. So my buddy, he's picking up his chute and he's like, tears are coming down his face. He's like, we got to get Mattos. He's over there. And so then the instructor like goes up to him, like puts his hand on his shoulder and he's like, hey man, like, and he just kind of points over to me, 50 yards away on the drop zone. As my buddy's like, oh, okay. So he thought I was dead. He thought I had burned in. Yeah. So that was my first sort of experience. And I remember telling my parents about that later that day. And like, my mom was like all freaked out,
Of course.
Yeah. But it was definitely an interesting experience. And then I had this like weird recurring dream right after that for like the next week where every night I would go to sleep and I would go into free fall and then I would wake up. And then I would have the same dream the next night, but I would get a little bit farther through the jump and then I would wake up. And then eventually it got to the point 5 or 6 iterations in where my parachute was malfunctioning. And then by I think like the 7th or 8th night, I went through the same dream the whole way through, all the way, burned in, and in the dream, and was like laying on the ground like with like broken bones and stuff, and guys were walking up to me. That was the dream that I had. But then after that, I didn't have the dream anymore. So my brain was like processing what could have happened and what it would have been like to like burn in and have every bone in my body broken, and watch the guys coming up to me to get me out of there. It's just bizarre.
Your mind does weird things. Like for years, I had the same dream every week for years. And it was me on a rooftop. I'd expended every mag and I had 1 frag left. And, whomever, we'll call it AQ or whomever we were fighting at the time, was coming up the stairs. And I had 1 frag. I had nothing left. And then I would wake up as soon as they were like at the top of the stairs. Mm-hmm. But it was literally the same dream for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Almost every week. And then it got further away. You know, the further away from Iraq I was, the less I would have it. So then I went to Afghanistan after that. And then now I haven't had that dream. I had it like maybe a year ago, but I used to have it every week.
Wow.
It's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's so weird.
It was so weird because it was like some of my worst fears, right? It was like, oh, I'm going to end up on a rooftop fighting for my life. Like I'm going to have to do this like whole fucking E&E. I'm going to be the only one left, and I'm going to have to fucking expend everything. And I got one frag left. It's that standard kind of like fight dream where you can't punch anybody, right?
Yeah,
you
you're
can't
like
shoot
arms are all
anybody.
over. Yeah, you're trying
now
to
I've got
squeeze
like
the
one
trigger.
frag, and that's what we were talking about yesterday. Like cooking off frags was also like the thing that I worried about. It's like I don't want to be in this situation where Murphy's Law takes over and I've got to like cook off frags. I fucking like because Murphy's Law is going to tell me, or for me, it's going to dictate. I'm going to get the one frag that doesn't have the timing, the chemical sequence correct in it, and I'm going to get it like fucking short fuse, and I'm going to fucking blow myself up. Like that was like a fear. Is it unfounded? So I'd go out and throw frags every day to try to get more comfortable with the fact that if I got to cook these things off, and I didn't want to.
Yeah, and I almost wondered with your dream there, because I've obviously had so many just crazy dreams. It's your brain is trying to process stuff, right? Your subconscious is trying to process stuff. So I almost wonder with your dream if you were struggling with the question of, do I kill myself with the grenade?
That's what it was.
Or do I kill them with the grenade?
That was always the question.
Do I kill like 2 of them, but then the other 5 guys are going to come get me?
Because so if I toss the frag in on top of them, I get a couple, maybe, but I'm still going to get.
You're going to get rolled up.
Or do I just, absorb it and take it? Do I take on the element of basically suicide and then killing whomever is with me here on the rooftop? But that was always the question that I was left hanging with. And it was horrible because I hated the dream. Every morning after that dream, I'd wake up and I'd feel like I had literally been doing like, fight gone bad, a CrossFit workout all fucking night long. I was like exhausted every time. And then I'd almost go to bed at night in fear that it's going to
happen again.
I'm going to have the same dream for fucking years.
Yeah.
And, that is story as to pertains to nothing other than like fucking dreams. Like,
I just actually over the last couple of months, so I just basically did like a 6-month deployment to Burma and saw some pretty hairy stuff. And my Terp, like one of my best friends, I watched him slowly die because he got hit. So I'm like fresh out of that, and I'm going back soon. But over the last few months, it's like I've been having some crazy dreams, and I've never experienced it to the point where I was like afraid to go to bed. But there was like a couple of weeks there, not at the moment now, but there was a couple of weeks, like as of like a month and a half ago, where every night I was like, dude, I don't want to go to sleep. I don't want to go to sleep because like I know I'm gonna have these god awful dreams, and it's tough because then it's like now you're not sleeping well, but you need the sleep so you can heal. So it's just vicious. It's this vicious circle,
and that's what gives me a lot of empathy for the guys that actually deal with the sleep deprivation based on really negative dreams. Because there is a cohort of our peer group that can't sleep because of what they've been through, and because of that, they have this like innate fear of going to sleep because they know that they're going to, be in a fight for their life, or they're going to be fucking terrified. It's like essentially going into like Friday the 13th or not Friday, like the Freddy Krueger scenario every fucking night. And you might or might not, see him, or, you might get a good night's sleep. I don't know, but it's flip a coin. I went through like years of that where I'm like, fuck, man, like I'm gonna have to like, hopefully I sleep good tonight. And then it's like, but then I'd have it and I'm like, all right, I'm good for a few days. So psychological relief. And then I'd be like, all right, well then, and then a week would go by and I'd be like, oh, here it comes.
Here it comes again.
Like, here it comes.
Here we go.
Oh man. Oh, isn't combat fun? Hip hooray.
It's just like the movies.
It's just like the movies.
So glad we're doing this.
So John Wayne, you're so right.
Yeah, exactly. And I that's why I was having experienced that just for like 2 weeks. I again, luckily I was stopped having sort of the really, really bad nightmares I was having. So that's good. But it's so strange.
You keep going back.
Yeah, like I'm still very much active.
I see your wedding ring.
Yeah.
Where's your wife live?
So we just got married actually in July.
Okay.
So she's going to actually go with me overseas and be based out of country over there. I don't want to say on air where exactly we're going, but so I'm going to be going into Burma and doing basically a deployment there.
You plan on having kids?
Yeah, at some point in the future. Yeah, within the next couple of years.
Because everything
probably.
changes, right? Like, I mean, you know that, but it's like everything changes because then
Yeah.
it's like now you have other things that are also part of your DNA structure that depend on you.
Yes. So for me, like what I do now, I don't obviously. I already know. Like it's the shelf life on this is pretty short, and it's actually good. It's really really good thing. Like my wife, I like to say, she civilized me in a way, and in a way is very much like saving me from going down this path that I'm currently on and never coming back from it.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, like, because I'm still very heavily involved in combat and things like that. So again, I'm not seeking it, but it's just what I do. So my organization, Stronghold Rescue Relief, we go into conflict zones and protect and care for families that are in those places. And so that involves being in very, very dangerous situations. And I just, like I said, I just spent 6 months in Burma living in the jungle.
But when you go there, obviously, like that's a non-permissive environment because you're not supposed to be there, right?
Well, no, it's a permissive environment because the tribe that I work with the Karen tribe in particular. They want me there. They're very happy to have me there, and so.
But the Burmese,
the central government, the central government of Burma, they are the bad guys, but they are the ones who are oppressing all the ethnic minorities. They are the ones who are raping and murdering and destroying villages and stuff.
But if they catch you there, like that,
they'll kill me.
Yeah,
put me in prison forever.
Okay.
Yeah. But the rules just don't get caught. But it's the way it works is no, you live like in the mountains with the people. Like I'm not going to get, no one's going to like knock on my door and like pull me out of my bed in the middle of the night and arrest me. Like, no. Like I'm living in a hut in the jungle miles and miles and miles away from like where the bad guys have sort of their stronghold. And then we go to the frontline areas. So it is a possibility that would happen, but it would happen in the context of a battle. It wouldn't, it's not like that. So the area that I'm working in is actually the same area where British, I don't want to say, they weren't OSS. What were they? They had the special, during World War II, whatever
the SAS guys?
No, they weren't SAS. They were British, like Secret Service type stuff, but not the OSS, like the British version. I'm slipping my mind. But I'm working in the same hills where they worked in fighting the Japanese, working with the same tribe to fight against the Japanese.
Bridge over River Kwai type?
Bridge on the River Kwai, same exact area. Yeah. And it's interesting too, one of the villages that I go through every time I'm there in Burma, it's where the Japanese executed a British officer. I can't remember his name. But so there was this British officer who was there helping organize the resistance against the Japanese. And so the Japanese started killing civilians along with the Burmese. So the Burmese and the Japanese were working together. They started killing Karen civilians until the Karen gave up the British officer. They wouldn't give up the British officer they had hiding in the hills. And so eventually the British officer heard about this and he came in and turned himself in. And then the Japanese executed him by firing squad. And so I go through the same village where this thing happened. And one of the guys I work with, who's one of the leaders there, his mother was, who's passed away now, his mother was one of the ladies who helped hide, actually his name was Colonel Seagrim. She helped hide Colonel Seagrim in this one particular mountain pass in the hills. And they told me when I was there, they're like, oh, this is where the British guy was in World War II. And I'm like, what? And they're like, yeah. And some of the places I've been to, they're like, you're the first Galawa white person. You're the first white person to be here since World War II. And some of the like very, very forward locations. Like you're the first person to be back here to see it. And which is a strange thing. But
Yeah, I mean, how often are you in, I would say that combat specific environment when you're like
at least half the time.
Really?
Yeah, at least half the time. So what my organization
what are you doing?
Yeah, so
what are you specifically doing?
Yeah, so I'll explain like what the organization does and then sort of my role within it. So my organization is called Stronghold Rescue Relief, and so what we do is we have three primary missions. So we're a nonprofit organization. We do emergency medicine, humanitarian relief, and then refugee protection is sort of what we call it. Refugee protection. So emergency medicine, particularly in Burma, we have 4 ambulances that run full time that are run by local ethnic crews, and we manage them and organize them, but they're the ones who run it. So we call it charity with dignity. It's Green Beret 101. Go in, train up the locals, buy with and through, AAA, advise assistant company, all that. So that's how we have this medical system built, because we're in these environments where there's zero medical care. Well, not zero medical care. There's zero medical transport to get to medical care. And so you have guys stepping on landmines. You have pregnant women in some random village. One of the reasons we started the ambulance was last year we were driving through Burma in one of our trucks, one of our Stronghold trucks, and they stopped us and they said, "Hey, can you take this lady to a clinic?" And so there was a lady who had been bleeding out, a pregnant lady who was 7 months pregnant, had been bleeding out for 12 hours in her hut. And we were the first truck to come along. We were the first truck that they could get to take her to the clinic, which was like 5 hours away by truck, let alone if you had to walk through the hills, like she'd die, right? And so I was like, yeah, of course, like get her in the truck, and we took her to the clinic. There's a clinic run by, actually, this is cool, run by the father of one of your former employees. I won't say names because just at this point they're keeping stuff secret.
I know who that is.
Yeah. So yeah, your former employee's father runs this incredible clinic. They do incredible work. They're doing like surgeries in a tent in the jungle.
They've been doing this for 40 years, right? Like that's
in different parts. But yeah, they have their own sort of thing. But they don't have the ambulances. Nobody has ambulances. And so we went in and we set up ambulances, including a boat ambulance. And so, I mean, every single day I could pull you photos up from on my phone over just the last week. Guys with legs blown off, guys with spinal injuries, and all these guys who are out there defending these villages that are under constant attack. Women, kids, and their arms blown off.
But what's the agenda from the government's perspective? What are they pacifying from? What are they benefiting from this?
So Burma, the war in Burma is very unique in the fact that World War II never ended for Burma. So when the British left, so the ethnic Burmese, not all ethnic Burmese, but in general, the ethnic Burmese sided with the Japanese to fight the British because they didn't like the fact that the British had made Burma like one of their colonies. So the Japanese come in, the Burmese fight alongside the Japanese. However, the Japanese start to lose, and so then the Burmese switch sides. And they go back to the British and they say, "Hey, we're friends now." And so then for the last year of the war, or last like 6 or 9 months of the war, the Burmese, they are fighting alongside the British. So then the war ends, the British leave. They leave all their weapons and ammo and all this other stuff behind, and they leave it with the ethnic Burmese. Now the problem is the ethnic Burmese at that time, they were trying to exterminate's not the right word, subjugate. They were trying to subjugate all the other ethnic minority groups. And there's a lot of different ones. Let's say there's about like a dozen like big ones. Totally different culture, totally different language. You and I going in and looking at them, we wouldn't be able to tell the difference, but they can tell the difference. And again, totally different languages and religions and stuff like that. And so the ethnic Burmese, basically, they took all the weapons. The Burmese military, the Burma Army, they formed the Burma Army, which became the government of Burma. It's like if General Mattos was like, "Hey, the Marines, we now run DC," right?
That would be cool.
That would be interesting. That's the one way to put it. So, but that's basically what's going on. And so now that the Burma Army wants to subjugate all of these ethnic minority groups. The problem is they're not really truly strong enough to do it, but they're also, none of the ethnic minority groups are united enough to completely stop the Burma Army. So for the last 75 years, they've been fighting this war, trying to stop the Burma Army from controlling all of the sort of the border areas of the country. And so the Burma Army, their sort of official policy is that they are ethnically superior and that everyone else needs to be subjugated. And so if you resist them, they feel completely justified in their head to go in, rape, murder, exterminate villages, burn villages. I've got videos of this stuff I'll show you as well. I did an article for a Coffee or Die magazine. Yeah, and I put videos in there that were given to me when I was there. This stuff happened when I was there. Villages burning, piles of bodies of civilians been slaughtered, children, half of them were children, bodies piled, burned, and everything like that. So, and that was like, that video was taken maybe a mile or 2 or 3 miles away from where I was at when I was there. So that's what's going on at the moment. And so everybody's constantly fighting. So the Burma Army's fighting everybody, and everybody's fighting the Burma Army. The problem is none of the ethnic minority groups, or a lot of them, they're not quite as united as they need to be. And so that's why the war just continues on and continues on and continues on. Things have shifted since 2021. I won't go into the politics of it, but basically the entire country was like, all right, we're sick of the Burma Army. And so then the Burma Army, who had mostly control in the cities, even the city people started rising up and were like, nah, like we're tired of you guys. We want democracy. And so now the entire country is just in flames as they're trying to get rid of the Burma Army. So the Burma Army, they're like an occupying force in a hostile country.
Interesting.
Yeah, even though they're from there.
Yeah.
Now that over the last 2 years, everything has changed.
Flipped.
And so the violence is just off the charts, like the amount of like constant fighting. So
is it being supported by outside entities? So is
the Burma Army?
Yeah.
I don't think they're directly supported. So the Burma Army controls the economy, they control everything, but they do buy weapons and things from Russia and China, for example.
Right.
So the Burma Army just bought like 5 or 6 more Russian MiGs. And so like when we're out there,
You can.
yeah, there's like Russian MiGs flying over you, dropping bombs on places, and you're like, oh, hopefully they don't drop on me. So, and then the Burma Army, they make their own weapons, they make their own ammo.
Right.
So they're like a military government. They're
Right.
like a military state, yeah. And so they're oppressing the people.
How did you go from, I guess, helping Middle Easterners, or when I say Middle Easterners, like you're specifically involved in Iraq, and then now you're going to pivot and go to Burma.
Yeah.
Like why go from one to the other? Is it more of like you're just going wherever what we'll call it the developing world war zones? Like why Burma, not Ukraine? I'm just like. It's an obvious question.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd worked in Iraq for like 90 days, but that was right toward the end of ISIS. ISIS was still there for like another year or so until they finally cleaned them all up. So there wasn't as much of an opportunity to go there to kind of do the work that we're doing. Also, when I was in, I spent like a month and a half in Thailand after I'd been hit. Basically just trying to get myself back in shape and just, spend a lot of time doing kickboxing. So I started doing a bunch of Muay Thai kickboxing.
Muay Thai.
Yeah. So I was doing Muay Thai kickboxing for like a month.
So, sorry cup. Kunsabaiti Rukap.
Oh, Sawadi Kam.
That's my language.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I know.
That's my language.
I know hello and,
I was like,
and thank you.
I went to Thai. Yeah. I was like 6 month.
You did the 6 month?
Yeah.
Did,
So I've never been to Thailand because
did.
I went from Thai language school to, basically 9/11 and then into the Middle East. I never went to Thailand.
I did 3 months of Tagalog, Filipino.
Nice.
And then went straight to Afghanistan. So
and I did
made sense.
And I did like 6 trips to the Philippines. So I was
really?
like, my first actual like no shit combat rotation was in the Philippines. And like, technically there's no combat there, but we tried. So like, try as we might, we didn't actually. Yeah. The old Abu Sayyaf. Yeah. This thing.
Classic.
Where's that? Where's that knife that we had out the other day? Oh, it's right here. Yeah. I love this. Okay. So this Filipino.
Oh, Filipino Commandos?
Yeah, the Filipino Commandos.
Oh, that's great, man.
Yeah. Isn't that awesome?
That's so cool.
Yeah. It was like such a fucking cool trip. I was telling this story the other day. I was like, the first time I ever got shot at was actually in the Philippines. I was taking a shit and like some communists were out and about doing their thing. And I was like, I think they just thought we were like standard Filipino Army guys. They didn't actually necessarily know that I was like, round eye Magoo, out there.
Yeah.
And I saw the brush like popping like out next to my.
Oh, no kidding.
And I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, you're like, what is that?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
like it was
strange.
like
This feels funny.
What is that? And then what felt like a long time was probably only like literally like maybe a second and a half.
Exactly.
It felt like a long time. And I was like, wait, that's what that is. And so I kind of rolled off to the side. And my buddy started laughing, and he was like laughing at me. I was taking a shit.
That's too funny.
And they went and rolled him up. And then I got this little doohickey as a reminder.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Combat veteran. Count it.
Count it. Counts.
Write them up. Write them up for the award. There you go.
So you go from Iraq.
Yeah, so I spent like a month in Thailand doing Muay Thai, and I was aware in Mae Rim. Oh, sorry, Mae Rim. It's right outside of Chiang Mai.
Yeah,
there's a guy, Chris Smith. He's a former Marine. He's half Thai, half American. He has a gym out there called Gym Bangarang.
Oh yeah,
and it's outside of the city. Yeah, and it's fantastic. So they train actual like Thai fighters and stuff like that. But you can go there and train, and it's a really good setup. So while I was there. There were some guys from Burma heard that I was there, and they basically, hey, we want to meet with you because at the time they were kind of in the middle of a ceasefire. The guys from this Karen tribe, they were in the middle of a ceasefire with the Burma Army, but then the Burma Army just used that ceasefire time to go attack the Rohingya, and like they like pushed like 1 million Rohingya out of the country. So bad stuff's going on, but they realized that they were about to get attacked again. They realized that the fighting was about to kick off again. This was in late 2017, early 2018. And so they were like, hey, can you come help us prepare for, like, we know this war is going to pop off. So I met these guys, and through some of the other volunteers I'd worked with in Iraq. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I was kind of looking for, like, what's my next mission? What am I going to go do? So I spent like 6 months living in the jungle by myself with these Karen dudes going from village to village. I just needed to learn what was going on, figure out the situation, and eventually was able to start my organization. And so now I work there a ton. As far as Ukraine, we actually did go to Ukraine. I was in Ukraine in, I guess, was that 2022 when the Russians were still, I was in Kyiv when the Russians were still advancing on Kyiv. So I was actually there setting up medical stuff because we thought that the Russians were going to overrun the city. So, and potentially surround it. So I was actually there for a short while, but we work specifically in Burma because there's a huge need there. Not a lot of people are helping there. It's a very difficult environment to work in. Like if you want to go to Ukraine, that's fine. There's like thousands and thousands of people in Ukraine, and that's great. It's a good thing. But you can go to Ukraine. You can drive across. As soon as you get across the border in Ukraine, like you can take like a luxury train, like almost to the halfway through the country, and then you can like drive in a Mercedes anywhere you want to in the country. Right. Granted, it's still super dangerous. Burma's not like that. You're in the hills, you're in the jungle, it's Vietnam. So you need guys who have the ability to stay, the guys who have the ability to work in that environment. So that's one of the places where we work heavily. And so as far as my role within there, I typically spend most of my time working like at the front lines. So what we do is we're training the guys on medical stuff, and then we're also helping the locals a bit of advising on, hey, how do you deal with these incursions that happen? So what'll happen is the Burma Army they'll sort of do a clearance operation, but they're going to come in and start slaughtering people. And so how do you respond? These people can't all run away into the jungle because like now you have nothing. Now you have no food. Like they're subsistence farmers. So they stay there and then they run away when the Burma Army comes in. They go back to their homes. And so one of the things the Burma Army will do, they'll come in, they'll clear a village, sometimes burn it down, sometimes not. And then they'll put landmines in these villages to prevent the villagers from coming back. And of course, just Murphy's Law, 99% of the time, people stepping on landmines as kids, you know. So that kind of stuff's going on. And and there's still a lot of like ongoing operations and things that are happening. So we're there to protect the refugees and people who are running. So I can't go into too much detail. I'm happy to tell you offline everything.
Let's pause there because I need to piss.
That sounds good. Me too.
Let's come back.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
You're talking about what you do specifically.
Yeah.
Like, and then kind of like what the organization does and then differentiating between the two.
Yeah. So what I do is I pretty much spend a lot of my time on the frontline areas, setting up the medical training and stuff like that. Again, advising people on how to sort of deal with these incursions and such. And the other thing too that we do is we bring in radios. We set up basically a early warning network is what we call it.
A repeater system, or
not even a repeater system. It's literally just a bunch of radios. Everyone's on the same frequency and they talk to each other. Because what will happen is the Burma Army, they'll come in, they'll attack a village, and the villagers run away. But sometimes they run right into another Burma Army unit, or they don't know where to go, or they don't know that it's coming till it's too late. And so we put in all these radios so they can all communicate with each other and avoid these massive attacks and massive, atrocities and stuff that happen.
So why is nobody helping? Like outside of like.
So I think there's several elements to it. On the governmental level, I understand why why foreign governments can't get too involved directly.
Why?
The reason for that is because you're dealing now with like Russia, China, and that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So you can't send in you're going to send in troops into Burma. It's going to be Vietnam all over again.
Right.
So you can't directly like send troops in. They should be sending aid, in my opinion. They should be sending aid to the tribes that are constantly under attack. And I think there was a bill that was just recently passed. I think it's called the Burma Act in Congress to start sending, I think they call it technical support, to all the different groups who are fighting against the Burma Army. There's massive amounts of sanctions, from pretty much every civilized country except for Russia and China, of course. But everyone has sanctions on them, so everyone's kind of doing what they can. The thing with Burma, or even the frustration around like why don't more people do more? And I care a lot because like my wife's actually from the tribe that I'm helping.
Oh, really?
Yeah, her family are refugees living in Canada. So she came to Canada when she was like 10. So totally Western, but still speaks the language. And that's actually, I met her in the jungle. She was there working at the clinic.
Right.
And that's where I met her. But there's really not much that you can do other than send in troops. Mm-hmm. And so the sanctions are there, all that stuff's there. But I think my point was when it comes to the people in the media and people talking about it, yeah, I get the frustration sometimes. So like we put a lot of stuff on our Instagram showing stuff that we have videos and photos that we have personally taken or that our teams have taken. So we're not sharing other people's content, just the stuff just where we're involved, and lots of injuries, stuff like that. So a Stronghold Rescue on like Instagram and Facebook and all that.
It's just at Stronghold Rescue.
At Stronghold Rescue.
Okay.
And you know, there's a million conflicts going on. You know, Africa's constantly falling apart. Mm-hmm. There's tons of stuff going on in South America. Burma's just one country in Asia. Middle East is still going crazy. Ukraine's going crazy, right? So there's so many different conflicts that are happening. I personally don't get mad that like why isn't Fox News and CNN talking about what's going on in Burma? It's like, well, because if you talk about what's going on in Burma, then you also have to talk about every single country in Africa that's going through something at the moment, and in South America, right? So it is tough. So we're there to sort of fill the gap as much as we can. But I'm under no impression that it's like, you know, the entire world community needs to, you know, stop what they're doing and come and help necessarily. I would love it if they did, but it's not realistic. You know, it's just not realistic because you're going to go get involved. If you send troops into Burma, it's just going to be, you know, Vietnam all over again. And then you got to deal with all the different countries around the border. You got Thailand, India, China, Laos, you know, Bangladesh, like all these different countries on the border. So it's not so simple.
No, and I can see that. I can see how you have multiple different countries, and then you have tribes that are also outside of the country. What I would say is inside borders, outside of what I would say that the conventional country confines, right? Mm-hmm. So you have tribal loyalty, you have country loyalty, you've got multiple different power struggles specifically related to even externals. And then you have Russia, China, the United States. You get so many different competing interests. And that's what happens in some of these areas where you've got a lot of competing interests. Whereas like if you went to Mexico City, like you're dealing with the cartels.
Right.
That's kind of what you're dealing with.
Yep.
Right. So you're dealing with the Mexican government with.
Right. It's fairly cut and dry. It's not easy, but it's fairly simple to understand.
Right.
You're like, okay, you got cartels, government, a little bit of mix between the two sometimes, but that's pretty much what you got. Yeah, exactly. But everyone speaks Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Everybody speaks Spanish, and everybody's selling drugs for the most part. Yeah, exactly. So you go to Burma. So we've even talked about the drug problem, which I don't even know anything about that really.
Yeah.
But, so Burma's part of the Golden Triangle, man. They've got
that's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
So then
there's drugs and stuff flowing through that place like crazy.
I mean, the Golden Triangle. That's what it's most famous for. I would say outside of this conflict is because of that region. Yeah. Which is mainly that heroin. I think was the export out of there for most of it, right?
Yeah, and they have a form of crystal meth. They call it yaba. And so you want to talk about throwback to World War II. So the Burma Army, from what I understand, about 50% of the guys in the Burma Army take yaba, which is crystal meth. It's like a pill form of crystal meth, and they always say yaba yaba, and they make this little symbol with their finger, showing you the size of the pill. So they take these pills and they put them under their tongue or on their tongue, and it makes them sort of super soldiers for a short amount of time.
It's like the Nazi,
just like the Nazis did. Yeah. Amphetamine. So these guys will take this stuff, and I've seen it. I've seen it in combat. I've seen it in battle there in Burma, where dudes. I'm like, that guy, like, what am I looking at right now? Why is this guy not afraid? Why is he's not acting like a normal human being?
Right.
And that's not courage. Like, that dude's on drugs. That dude is straight up on drugs.
Yeah.
And, sometimes it benefits us because we're able to, because he does something dumb and we can then protect people easier. But, so it's a very strange thing. And then you have all the different countries around. They're benefiting from the drug trade. They're benefiting. They have deals. A lot of them, all these foreign countries that surround Burma, they have like under the table deals with the Burma government, with the Burma Army. And so what I've seen, my own personal 2 cents on it is, it seems to me that like a lot of the governments around the country, they're just kind of waiting to see over the last 2 years, like, is the Burma Army going to fall? Because it's getting to the point where they might.
Right.
And so they don't want to choose sides just yet until they see whoever's going to come out on top. That's who they're going to work with.
Who's going to come? From your opinion, like, who comes out on top if the if they fall?
Mm-hmm. The Burma Army that they fall.
If
who
the
comes out on
Burma
top?
Army falls, like who comes out on top?
Potentially, what ends up happening is now you have a power struggle between the different. You have a power vacuum, right? So then you have a power struggle between the different ethnic armed groups.
Who are the biggest players in the ethnic army?
You're going to deal with like the Karen, the Kachin, the Shan, the Wa. The Rohingya are a very large tribe, but they don't have much of a military or anything like that. And so you've got like several big different players, and
How big are the populations?
I don't know. I don't know the numbers on that kind of stuff.
Right.
But the thing is, like, if all the ethnic minority tribes work together,
right,
then they can easily defeat the Burma Army. What's going on right now is they're trying to. Most people, what they're trying to do is set up sort of a federalist state where each of the different ethnic minorities have their territory, and that's it. Everybody contributes to sort of a central sort of federal government, but everyone has independent states within the country.
Right.
That's sort of the idea of kind of what they're fighting for once the Burma Army goes away. And they want to set up a democracy, so you have some sort of a representative democracy where each of the tribes sends representatives to to the central government to make decisions and stuff in the future. But again, the Burma Army has to fall first.
Right.
And
how do you get in there? Like, can you say?
That's something I can't talk about publicly. How we get in there? It's nothing super nefarious or super cool.
I was just more interested in it, and if you could talk about in the context of like is there a surrounding country that's actually supportive of?
Yeah, that's kind of the part I can't really talk about too much. But what I can say is, like, anytime I go into Burma, I'm linking up with the tribe that controls that portion of the border. So I'm going into friendly territory with people who want me there. So I meet up with that government. I always go say hi to the leaders on the civilian and the military side. Let them know exactly what we're doing and whatnot. And we work very closely with them. The ethnic minority tribal leaders. And so we have like full access anywhere we want to go, anything we want to do, where they want the help and they need the help. And so we're able to go in and have some pretty marked impacts in these areas where we're working. Yeah.
So do you see yourself transitioning out of that area of the world eventually, or do you see yourself saying, well, I'm here and I'm committed till the end?
So that's a tough question. And that's a question I ask myself. So it's a good question. So like I said, my wife is from the tribe that I'm particularly helping. So for the rest of my life, in some way, shape, or form, I will be helping there. And I hope it's in more of a peaceful capacity in the future, because like I'm kind of burned out on the fighting. I'm kind of over it, getting shot at and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's that's another question, which is like, are you sick of getting shot at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm over it. I'm like, it's not cool anymore. It's not fun anymore. It's like I'm good.
You check the box.
I've checked the box. Yeah. Again, we can talk offline too about some more of the other stuff. Hopefully, I'll be able to talk about it once the conflict ends within the next few years. Hopefully, yeah, it's like for me, like, I'm not there for adventure. Like I'm very much a homebody. Like, I would love to, you got a beautiful office here. Like, I would love to like just go work at an office, and work on cool projects and stuff like that, and know where I'm sleeping that night and know where I'm going to be 3 months from now. So it's very like what I do is very isolating. It's very lonely is not the right word, but it's like I'm out there on my own, and I do have a small team of guys that I work with and travel with, and they're awesome dudes, all veterans and such, and. But it's still, even as like leading the organization, and it's like we're out there. No one's there to help us. So it does get it's difficult, and it takes a mental and takes a big mental toll on me. As far as working in Burma, like, we'll always continue working there, I think, and for even if the war completely ends, it's like, cool, we'll just switch to development and that kind of stuff, which we're already doing a lot of that right now. We're building some roads and things, but. Like right now, my organization, we actually work in other countries as well as needed. So right now, I actually have a 3-man team in Mozambique, living in the bush with the park rangers. Actually, just last night they sent me photos. They were able to roll up a couple of illegal. I don't know if they were poachers or fishermen or what they were doing.
Right.
But, so yeah, they're out there living with the rangers for like a month and a half, training them up, basically doing FID, helping out the anti-poaching rangers and such. And yeah, so it's like we're involved in other places and whatnot. And I, in the future, it's like I don't know exactly how much longer I will do sort of the front line.
Yeah.
Living on the front. But it's tough too, because like I see the guys that I work with, like they don't get to leave. So there's that guilt. I have that guilt where, man, if I walk away, I know that those guys are still there. Like even coming back to the States for the last 6 months, I got married and been traveling around, going on podcasts and, raising awareness and support for the organization and such. Those guys are still out there getting shot at. They're still getting bombed. I'm getting photos like over the last couple of months, like two different patients have come in. I was like, oh, I know that guy, and that guy's, like messed up pretty bad. Like I lost a leg. Another guy had been shot through the chest, I think. I was like, oh, I know those guys. And so like they're there, they can't leave. And so how do you, so the real question is like, okay, how do you, when you go there and you work in these places, how do you have a marked impact for the long term? And that's why the model that we do at Stronghold is the charity with dignity approach of enabling the locals, building up their capabilities. Because whether it's a year from now or whether it's 20 years from now, I'm not going to be able to go in there and do everything. And I'm only one man. I can't do that much. Even my team of guys, we do a lot of stuff, but we're not as good as 50 locals who can do stuff. So everything we do is about enabling the locals. It takes longer. It's more frustrating. It's less fun. It's less sexy because you don't get to be out there doing the stuff, right? Like you're not the one like treating the wounded. You're teaching someone else how to treat the wounded, right? But it's so much more effective. And so all these patients that are being treated, all the stuff that if people go to our Instagram and look at all these like patients and stuff, you're not going to see any white people. You're not going to see pictures of white people because we're not there. We're not there at this exact moment. But all of our programs, like we have those guys that are treating these patients, like they're on our staff, they're on our salary, and they're organized and trained by us, and they're running it completely without us. And so my goal is every program that we do at Stronghold is to build up the capability of the locals. And so when things go bad, and they go bad often in these places, that people are able to stand on their own. In the article that I wrote for Coffee or Die, I talked about one village, so juxtaposing two different scenarios that happened when I was there. In one village, the Burma Army came in, massacred a bunch of people, burned the bodies. I put the video, it's in the article. And then in the second half of the article, I talk about a month later, the Burma Army came in a much larger force, attacked multiple villages, but the response was completely different. Nobody was, like several civilians were killed just by mortar fire and things like that. But the civilians, they started treating their own people and evacuating their own people, and they were communicating to get out of there. And then the local defense force guys were able to come up there. Some of them were killed in action. A bunch of them were wounded, but they treated their own guys, evacuated them to an ambulance boat, which then took them to a truck ambulance. And there's advanced medical care, and there's oxygen tanks, and they were able to get stabilized. And all of that stuff happened. And then as thousands of people lose their home and run into the jungle, they were given food and medicine and shelters. All of that stuff, the civilians treating each other and evacuating their people, talking on the radios, the village defender guys who had proper tourniquets and Skedco litters and radios, and were able to evac their guys to ambulances. All those guys have been trained by us. We'd been there for months earlier. We'd been there for months prior and had trained all this stuff up. And so the best part of that story is we weren't even in the country when that particular attack happened. And then everyone responded beautifully and saved a lot of lives. And so again, I talk about that in the article. And that's really the gold standard of what it is that we want to do. So right now we've got guys, like I said, in Mozambique training the Rangers. Well, that's great. It's fun. The guys are obviously having a good time out there working with some good dudes. But the measure of success is going to be, okay, a month and a half from now when our guys are out of there, do we get messages from the Rangers saying, hey, this equipment and this training that you gave us, hey, we were able to, catch this poacher who was also smuggling weapons illegally, because it's all the same thing, right? And The guys are going to do a development project. They're going to help stock a school with supplies and things like that in this village in Mozambique where they're currently at. So the goal is for us to be able to, and for me myself personally, to be able to kind of take a step back at some point, because I'd like to have a family. I do want to step back at some point.
That would be my question is, as you start to look into the future, what is it? What's your future look like?
That's a very tough question, and I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer because, obviously you've been through the process of transitioning out of the military and starting a new thing. I've kind of been through that, but I'm still, in a way, I'm still operational. I'm still in the field. I'm still doing this stuff. So I'm still in that world. And so, what does it look like when you step away from things? I think in some capacity, I'll always be involved in Stronghold, and we'll continue it long into the future, and I'll still go overseas and stuff, but I'm not going to go for, at some point, I'm going to have kids and stuff. I don't plan on going over for 6 months at a time every year to go to like frontline locations and things like that. So do you see yourself
really raising a family in Wisconsin?
In Wisconsin, but then we also too, it's important to my wife and I that we show our kids kind of where they came from. So that side of the family, like the Burma side of the family, the Karen tribe side of the family. So it's like, we'll take our kids back to where it's safe and where it makes sense to, so they can reconnect with their roots, see where they're from, and continue to help their, forever, basically my entire life, I'll be helping in some way, shape, or form. But then what am I going to do if I'm not doing that full time? I don't know the answer to that yet, but it's definitely a question that's on my mind. But for at least the next couple of years, I'm fully front side focused on what we're doing at the moment.
How old were you when you joined the Navy?
I was technically 17 when I signed the paperwork, and I went to basic when I was 18. Yeah.
And then did you go straight to buds?
Yeah, I went straight to buds. So I went through. I turned 19 like a week before Hell Week, I think. And then so now I got out of the Navy when I was 24 and went to Iraq. So I'm 31, turned 31 this year. So
okay.
Yeah. So I've been going for a little while, but not forever. I mean, and that's the other thing too, is like other guys have done much longer careers and whatnot. So
I mean, it's similar. I mean, I think about it like, I'm 46 and there are guys that have been doing it before me, right? So it's like,
the dudes that are like still in.
Oh yeah. I know guys that are like still on the trail, right? It's like guys that are still working at the agency, still doing fun, what they call fun stuff. And I'm like, I was literally texting a buddy of mine like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I forget. I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I was just in an ambush about 15 minutes ago, doing my thing. I was like, you're 50 years old, dude. We've been doing this for like 23 years. Like he's been doing it for like since he was 27.
Wow.
Like, hey man, like I'm just giving you not sage advice, but maybe like hang it up, bro. Like no offense, but some guys can't hang it up. They'll never be able to hang it up. Yeah,
that's the thing for me. Like I know, so guilt will keep me going a little longer than I should. I know, no doubt. Like survivor's guilt and wanting to help, that'll keep me going a little longer than I should probably. But for me, like I said, there's no like sense of adventure that comes with it. I'm like, dude, I'm good. Like I don't need to do this anymore for me.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a matter of service. It's like, how do you walk away from a situation when hey man, no one's here to help. So if I go in and help, if I bring my team in and help, and we go in somewhere for 3 months, 4 months, and set up shop and basically do FID in this area, I know for sure that villages will not be destroyed.
Right.
Lives will be saved. Lots of lives, not just 1 or 2 here and there. It's like, no, we're going to save a ton of lives. We're going to keep entire villages from being destroyed. If no one's taking your place, how do you walk away from that? Because it's one thing walking away from the military, because I remember leaving the teams. It's like, I was like, I remember like when I left the teams, I was like, all right, I'm out of here on Friday. And I was like, all right, bye, man. Like, like
there'll be another team guy. Like
exactly.
That's a one shortage. There's not one of in the context of recruiting more of like.
Yeah.
They're going to be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So they're always going to be fully stocked. They're going to have plenty of guys to go do what they do. So it's tough. Yeah. How do you, what is the end game? At what point do you say enough? At what point do I look at somebody who's asking for my help and I go, sorry, I can't.
Right.
And I think back to that guy next to the tank who I had to leave to die, and he did die. I'd made a lot of decisions in my life to save someone's life, but I never made a decision at that point to let somebody just die. And I had made that decision at that moment. And so well, why did I make that decision? And it was because, well, it was for self-preservation, because like, I can't save you, number one, and number two, I'm going to die if I try. So in that situation, it was easy to walk away. So I think in some form, that's what'll happen with me, is I'll walk away at some point if I'm sure my wife will let me know if I'm getting a little too crazy.
Yeah,
you know?
they tend to do that for you. Like, just level set with you a little bit.
Yeah.
When did you go through what you would diagnose yourself operator syndrome?
Yeah, so that's definitely a good thing to jump into. So I left the Navy in 2017. Started I did the Iraq stuff in 2017. 2018, 2019, was working in Burma, and then in 2020, the double knockout punch of the of COVID, and then I also had like a back injury just from like training. I tweaked it like pretty bad, so I was down hard for a few months. So during that time, I really my morale and everything just tanked. So at the time, the organization, we were bringing in almost no money, and what we were bringing in, we were constantly sending overseas, because again, we had trained the local guys who were still able to send stuff to, at the time, Venezuela and Burma, and but like on a personal level, like I just started to completely fall apart. And so during this time, I just started. It was like I'd been going since I was, 16, 17, trying to do this to do the SEAL thing, and then I just hadn't stopped. And I eventually it just kind of smacked me in the face and put me down hard on a mental level, which is just something I didn't fully understand. I got extremely depressed. Gained like 100 pounds, literally, and went through this horrible time in my life. So this is like during 2020, like late 2020 into 2021. And then I was able to sort of pull myself out of it in a way. I went to Florida, and I drove down there in one shot from Wisconsin to Florida. It was like 17 hours or something. And then I got a hotel on the beach, top floor, just staring at the ocean. I just sat there for a month and I stared at the ocean, because I was like, I don't know. I was like, what the hell's the matter with me, man? I can't get my head right. Nothing I do, like I'm addicted. I'm clearly addicted to something. I'm 100 pounds overweight. What the hell's the matter with me, man? Like, I have people who are relying on me. I'm supposed to be a tough, SEAL, and I can't kick this thing. Like, what is wrong with me? What is wrong with my head? And I sat there for a month and I stared at the ocean, and eventually, like, I just felt my stress levels every day just come down 1%. And eventually it's like my head my mind's just sort of healed itself. I don't know how else to explain it. It just sort of healed itself. And then I got my mind right and started the journey of losing 100 pounds. And eventually at that point, then I was able to start building the organization again. And so now we're, this last year we brought in like over, a couple $1 million in support. And so we have employees, and we're out there able to, saving tons of lives. But I went through this very, very dark period. And the only way I could describe what I was going through was sort of operator syndrome. Yes, I'd seen like air quotes traumatic things, but like every soldier sees traumatic things. Like, and not that they shouldn't affect you or don't affect you, but it was like I don't feel like they affected me, or they shouldn't have affected me that much. And I just it put me down so hard. But it was the constant lifestyle. It was the constant stress. It was the no breaks, no stopping, and throw on top of that all the craziness of the war. We talked earlier about the bad dreams, all of that stuff. And in Iraq too. I mean, we're seeing just like dead kids like constantly. Like that stuff messes with your head. You see a baby on the side of the road with its head bashed in and its brain hanging out, and you're like, yeah, like you're not gonna walk away from that and just go, okay, You don't easily recover from those things, and I was explaining this, and I think I've talked about it. Like, it's like Iraq's kind of with you forever. Like, for me, it's the first war experience, and it's the most prominent. I was there for 5 years. Wow.
And, I was there from the invasion all the way through 2009 when it was the SOFA, and then I left in 2009. Basra was the last place I was at. But, it's always with me. It's never going to be gone. Afghanistan's just kind of like, it was like the second party I went to that night. You know what I mean? Like,
Gotcha.
You don't remember that one all much. We know where the party started. We don't know how it ended. You know, like
we don't talk about that one.
Yeah.
And
it makes it harder. I think definitely for a lot of guys where they want to talk about how did you recover? How did you move past it? How do you continue to move past it? What are some of the things that you're doing now that help you?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, the first thing is you have to realize that there's nothing wrong with you because there's something wrong with you, right? Mm-hmm. So if you go into war, if you go into these places and you go into this stuff, it's like, dude, you're going to be affected, right? And so I think a lot of guys sort of have guilt or shame or whatever it might be, because it's like, oh, I'm not tough enough. Like, why am I having nightmares over this thing and whatnot? It's like the first thing you just have to realize is like, dude, it's going to affect you, and make peace with that. And the simple reality is, when you go to war, you come back different. Like there's a price to be paid, even if you didn't spill blood. Like even if you were never wounded, right? Like there's still a price that's paid for like what you did, what you saw, and everything that you were involved in, right? And like you're still gonna have to sort of pay that price for the rest of your life. You don't go into that and come out of it unscathed and just go like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna go whatever, like it never happened. It's like, no, it sticks with you. That's one. The second thing is, guys bottle it up so much. Guys just like, they won't talk about it unless they're drunk. Or they just don't deal with it. And it's like, dude, it's like you're not weak because you're saying, yeah, man, I saw this thing and it like messed me up pretty bad. Dude, if you bottle it up, it's eventually going to come back and bite you in the butt 1,000 times worse than if you had just dealt with it right away. It's like finding something rotten and like it's like, dude, cut away the rotten portion, and that way it doesn't infect the whole thing. Like I have a buddy of mine who I was in Iraq with. We were going through an EMT course, and we did a training scenario where there was a woman pinned up against a tree with a car. It was just a training medical scenario. And so she was screaming the whole time, just play acting, like, where's my baby? Where's my baby? And she kept on screaming, where's my baby? So we ran through this drill and we did a little debrief on it. And we're with civilians for the most part. And so my buddy, he walks off and sits behind a tree and just starts weeping. And like one of the toughest dudes I know, former Marine, like really, just really, really good guy. And he sits down behind a tree and he just starts weeping uncontrollably. And so I went and sat down next to him, and I realized, because this woman's like screaming for her baby, and it's like we had both been in Iraq together. He was one of the other guys behind the tank, right? I was shot and all that stuff. And yeah, it's like, so you don't deal with it, and all of a sudden it just comes and just smacks you straight across the face. So you got to deal with it. You got to talk about it. I personally, I even went to like the VA. It's like, I hate the VA so much. Dude, I can't even explain. So I went to the VA and I was like, hey, like I'm messed up. Like I got whatever I got. Like, can I talk to somebody? And I went in and I did that, and ended up, just being this like uber liberal lady who was telling me that basically I had a mental condition because of, we were talking about, so I was in there trying to go through like cognitive behavioral therapy, talking about just I've
heard that works.
Yeah. And it's in theory, it's like a really good idea. So we're going through that. And at some point, one of the weeks we were going through, she's like, in what way do you feel physically unsafe? And I was like, well, actually, like, I really don't feel physically unsafe. Like, and this isn't me being cocky. It's like, like I'm a big, like 225-year-old, like former SEAL. Like no one messes with me. Like I'm good. Like
you're good.
I'm good. Like I don't feel for my physical safety. And she's like, well, there has to be something. Well, at the time it was 2020, and like the BLM Antifa riots were going on in Wisconsin, and like Kenosha, one of the places where they overran. I lived there when I was a kid. And then the other one where the guy drove through there was a Christmas parade. You remember the guy drove through a Christmas parade? That's in Waukesha, like 2 miles from where my parents lived. Like 2 miles. So I was like there, not there physically, but it was like I'm from this area. This is where I grew up. This is where I grew up as a kid. Anyway, so I was like, well, I guess I feel like unsafe that, because I was like, I don't want some riot to come through my neighborhood, because one had come through our neighborhood, like a protest. To be fair, it was peaceful. They didn't do anything, but it was like a BLM Antifa protest that come through our town. And we're like a suburban area. It doesn't make sense for them to be there. they were screaming like no justice, no peace. And they were like, this is the no peace part of no justice because like we need to make you people feel uncomfortable. That's what they were saying on the TV to the camera. Anyway, so I was like, well, yeah, that makes me feel unsafe, I guess. But she was like super uber liberal. And so she's basically started telling me that I was wrong, that I shouldn't feel unsafe, even though like all this stuff is happening. And I was like, oh no, I can't talk with this woman anymore because she's going to start putting stuff in my record saying that I'm some crazy lunatic, right wing, whatever. I'm like, whoa, no. Yeah. So I literally like we were scheduled for the next week. I didn't message nothing. I just cold turkey. I was like, I stopped. I was like, I'm not talking to this lady anymore because I want to talk about feeling not safe. It's like I can't talk to this woman anymore because now she's now basically accusing me of being like some right wing lunatic, and I'm like, dude, no. That's not what's going on. That's not what's going on.
I'm just, I mean, I don't like riots. Like
I'm not a fan of riots.
Not a fan of riots in my neighborhood. Like it's pretty easy to fucking figure out.
Yeah, exactly. So just stuff like that. But as far as now, even now, like I'm still in it and I'm still going and I'm still in combat. Like I know by the end of this year or within the next probably 2 months from now, like I will be in heavy combat. Like I know this, no doubt. Because of where I'm going to go and what I got to do. And, it's like I've just
you carry a weapon?
Yeah. The locals. If the locals give me permission and they give me a weapon, then I will. Yeah, absolutely. And they always do.
I think that would be very difficult. Like one of the things I would have a hard time with is like not being able to carry a weapon in some of those environments where like it's not even a matter of like necessarily like you defending yourself. It's a matter of having the ability to defend yourself when the need arises. Yeah. And I think that's been a part of the nonprofit visualization. Mm-hmm. So when you go to work for some of these nonprofits, well, hey, you're not going to be able to carry a rifle. So good luck.
Yeah. So, well, the thing is with us is like, we're not going to like bring weapons or something from overseas. Like, cause you can't, you're like, we've looked into it. We're like, hey, if we can, we will. Yeah. And we make no apology about that. It's like, like our guys are up on the front line. It's ex special ops guys. Spec ops. Yeah, so like we're out there on the front line. So it's guys who are competent. They know what they're doing. I'm highly selective of like who I allow to come out because I can't have dudes that are trying to get their gun on, dude. Because you wouldn't believe like the emails and messages and DMs I get. Like, guys,
can't even imagine.
Like, dude, it's
fucking lunatics,
right? So it's like guys like who want to go fight. And I'm like, no. So like I've like very calm, professional, experienced guys who know what they're doing. And so if the locals provide us with weapons, like, we'll absolutely carry weapons because it's like, guess what? I'm getting shot at too. And it's like, and I've been in scenarios where it's like, I've had to take bad dudes out, like even in Burma, like just a few months ago, like we're in fighting, nothing I can do about it. You gotta take dudes out who are trying to kill you. So, or trying to kill other people. So, it happens. It's not our goal, but, it's either that or women and children get raped and murdered. And they pile their bodies, and I have video of that. So it's one or the other.
Is there ever a concern that you would be tried for war crimes?
Tried for war crimes?
Yeah,
I can't imagine I'd be tried for war crimes. No,
I'm just like
by
who?
Who?
No, I don't know. That's why I'm like,
because like I'm not. Well, so okay, so that's
you're non-affiliated. Yeah. You're essentially a mercenary if you're like seen as one, right? So
so it kind of comes down to it comes down to a couple things. One is, if you're a mercenary, if you're being paid to be there, like if the locals are paying for you to fight for them, now you're a mercenary. Okay. We don't do that. We're there free of charge. We're there volunteers. My guys are paid. Like everyone on staff is paid. Right. We don't even accept volunteers, except if we're trying them out for a paid position. So like, no, everyone's paid. Like I'm paid, but not by the locals. We're there to volunteer and help ourselves. Also, we're there to protect people. And it's clear-cut, black and white situations. It's like, dude, honestly, like take me to court. That's fine. Like, and I'll just stand there. And they'll be like, they were trying to rape and murder these people. So we defended them. Like, what do you want me to do? So it's like, I have actually, if anything, I have a moral imperative to actually get involved and defend these people. I can't walk away. I can't run away because I know exactly what's going to happen. Right. So there's that angle of it as well. So it's then the final piece of that is precedent. Okay, if you're gonna try me for stopping women and kids from getting raped and murdered, okay, well then guess what? Now you have to try and accuse every dude who's volunteering in Ukraine right now, helping out the Ukrainians. So it's like the reality is like it's not going to happen, and it can't happen. And if they did happen, it's like, bring it on, dude.
Do you ever get approached by foreign intel services to work for them specifically?
No, we've never had anybody approach us about stuff like that. But again, we are a nonprofit, so any information that we do have is like open to anybody. It's like open to anybody.
Got it.
We've sent stuff specifically to like some certain time sensitive stuff. We've sent to like U.S. government, like intel guys, and they can kind of run it up the chain. And we're open about that. Yeah. So like, yeah, we'll give whatever we can to the FBI, CIA, anybody, anything that we see. Yeah.
Does any of the support come from like government entities?
No,
like federal,
no, actually,
is it all just individual donation?
It's all individual donation. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit. And so we actually have a kind of a unique fundraising model. So with a nonprofit, obviously virtually all nonprofits subsist off of donations. What typically happens though is most nonprofits, they will go and they'll try to get grants, like large grants, or they will try to link up with wealthy people and try to get like large donations like from wealthy folks. And I'm like, I have some friends who are very, very wealthy and like they're my friends. And so I'm like, dude, I'm not gonna, like, it's just weird, you know, like if I run an organization where I'm like, hey man, like that's cool. Like you want to give $100,000 or whatever, you know, and if they did, that'd be great. But like, it's just weird. And it's very, I don't like having relationships with people and I can't be sincere, you know, like you're trying to like use them for something, you know, it's weird. So anyway, when I started my organization, after the first like year or two of running it, I completely switched away from trying to go for grants, trying to like get large donations, anything like that. And what we do is we basically have a Netflix subscription sort of model. So what we have is we have thousands of people who each give on average like $20 a month. And so that's how we're able to raise millions a year to go do this. And so what the reason it's so wonderful is on our end, it benefits us because I know 6 months from now, roughly how much money we're going to have.
Yeah.
I know 2 years from now, roughly how much money we're going to have at a minimum. So we're able to build long-term lasting projects like ambulances and things like that. And I'm not tearing my hair out going, oh no, we have to shut down the ambulances in 3 months if I don't find some person to give me a bunch of money, right? The other thing is for the donor, we actually limit how much people can give when they sign up. We say, if people want to sign up, we say, you know, a minimum is like 50 cents a day or $1 a day. So $15 a month or $30 a month, right? And then there's like a 75 cents a day, $20 a month. So we limit people. We say you can't give more than $30 a month because we don't want you to. We don't want to take all your money. And guess what? If you have it in your budget, we want something consistent. But we also want some. If you have $100 to give, that's great, man. Why don't you give us $20 a month and go give $20 to another organization that you believe in and another organization because you know like that old proverb like where your treasure is, there will your heart be also, right? So like if people. Even if you're just giving a little bit to these different organizations, like you're suddenly become much more aware of what's going on. Your heart is going to be in it, and it's going to make for a much better life for you. And so it's so much more consistent. And we don't want to. The other thing too that I'm hypersensitive to, a lot of the stories and stuff that I tell or like experiences that I have, and I come on podcasts and I talk about the stuff that we do, and some ones we go into like more stories and such. People have an emotional reaction. They have an emotional reaction and they go, oh man, like I really, really want to help. And so in those moments, people are not thinking clearly. And so they're like, oh, I want to give $100 a month or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, so that's why we actually limit it too. We say, hey, like if you want to sign up at $30 a month. Because what I don't want to have happen is because we for like the first like 6 months or maybe first year when I had this model set up, we didn't have the giving limit, I don't think, for like the first, like 6 months or so. And then, you would see people who would sign up and they're like, I want to give $150 a month. And you're like, no. Like that's a lot. That's a lot of money. So I never want there to ever be emotional manipulation. It's like, here's the ground truth. Here's what's going on. If you feel bad about it and there's a logical way that you can help us and you want to be a part of it, like if you can financially do that logically, great, sign up. And if not, dude, no sweat. And then the other thing too is we get people every week because we have thousands of donors. We get people every week who message us and say, hey, I got to cancel my donation. I lost my job. I got to, whatever. Right. And they apologize. They're like, we're so sorry, right? But it's okay because it's easier. Like we're not like horribly like relying on that one individual. So it's less stressful for them because they know, hey, it's only $20. I still feel bad that I'm quitting, but it's like, it's only $20. It's not like everything completely relies on me. So it's more of a community-based approach, and it's been very, very, very effective. because I've been able to have the opportunity to go on podcasts and things like this.
Yeah. How many shows have you been on so far? Because you've been on Jocko.
I was on Jocko. I've been on Andy Stumps a couple times. Been on Mike Ritland's a couple times. And then I've been, so Mr. Ballin made the Navy SEAL Goes Rogue in Iraq. And so we put a link to our website
I
there.
need to watch that now. I just thought that was like total bullshit. Like,
well, the rogue part was.
I'm such a pessimist. Sometimes I'm like rogue Navy SEAL. I'm like, whatever.
Like, whatever, man.
The first thing I thought of was like that, that stupid show, The Hurt Locker.
Yeah. The movie?
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of was like, you know how like the EOD guy goes out in Baghdad with like
goes rogue. Yeah.
Fuck off. Like, no EOD guy like went out in Baghdad with this M9. Like, I'm gonna jump the wire and go out and hunt the fucking people. Like, what? Shut up. Like, it never happens. That's the first time. Right. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, just like the EOD guy, the Hurt Locker. You're right.
Yeah, being a veteran ruins war movies.
Pull up a wiring harness
and you just yank it.
Yeah, you just yank it all up. I'm like, what kind of fictional fairy tale bullshit?
Man.
But now I like actually have to give it like a legit watch because like I actually really like his content. Mm-hmm. I was just turned on to it not too long ago, and that's when I was texting Cody back and forth. I was like, hey man, do you know this guy? He's like, yeah man, I went to Buds with that guy. It's like, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, really.
Such a cool small world.
And he's such a good dude too, like John. So he was in Iraq, or sorry, not Iraq. He was in Afghanistan as well. And he's told this story publicly as well. So one of the cool things about him is he was in a fight in Afghanistan, and he literally got hit in the chest with a grenade. A Taliban guy threw a grenade, hit him in the chest, and so then it dropped on the ground in front of him, and everybody scattered. And so the grenade went off, and so he got like peppered in the butt with a bunch of frag. nobody died, so it was fine. Right. But yeah, so like legit dude. So you think like, oh, YouTuber, just some dude out there, but it's like, no man, like this is the real deal, man. He's the real deal.
He's a legit dude. There's a few
and
of
a good
guys.
person too. A good person. That's another thing too, because like sometimes guys will get famous, so they'll get successful or whatever, and then everyone behind their back is like, dude, that guy's such a piece of crap. Like he got lucky.
Oh my god.
And it's like, but he's a good person. He deserves
like
it.
Everybody. I watched this SF meme page posted something the other day. It's like nobody hates veteran success like other veterans. Like,
dude, yes. Like, oh, dude, I can't imagine the hate that you've gotten. I can't even imagine.
I love it though.
Yeah, you're just like, yes, this is all true.
Oh, I love it.
It's all true.
Dude, I fucking like drink it up in the mornings. I'm like, whatever. It's like at the end of the day, and I had this really good piece of advice a long time ago by Malcolm Gladwell. Mm-hmm. And
love his book.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah,
and he was on the podcast and he was talking.
Awesome.
He's like, hey man, just a little something for you. He's like, the bigger you get, he's like 10% of everybody that knows of you or the company is always going to fucking hate you.
Yeah.
So he's like, just think about like that 10% voice, and all these people are going to fucking hate you, and they're all going to like throw mud at you. They're all going to talk shit. They're all going to do this like 10%. And so he's like, the louder that gets, the bigger the audience is that you actually have.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. So then I take it honestly as like
a compliment in a way.
It's like a compliment. So
yeah.
And people,
that they're jealous and they're haters.
Yeah,
like that's what it is.
Like I win. Like I've told this to people all the time.
Dude.
I'm like, dude, I won. Like I got a fucking awesome company. Like we have 900 people that work here.
Wow, that's so cool.
We're profitable. Like nobody's gonna be taken away from me, man. Like I got 2 grad kids. I got a great wife. It takes me 12 minutes to get to the office every day.
Oh, that's great,
I
man.
win.
Yeah,
I win, man. Like I donate.
It's like, who cares?
It's like, I donated $3.5 million last year to veteran nonprofits.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
I win, motherfuckers.
Exactly.
It's like, it's fun for me in the context of like, I have the largest coffee subscription in America. The largest.
That's
in
great.
America. Where and it's not me time to braggadocious. I'm just saying,
go for it, man.
Dude, I bump in and I talk to so many different vets, and it's like literally, dude, 99 out of 100 interactions I've had in 10 years, 99. I've had one negative interaction. A guy came up to me and he's a pilot for Southwest Airlines in the Dallas airport. And he's like, I disagree with what you said in this one thing. And I was like, well, tell me what it is that you disagree with. Mm-hmm. And he was like, this is what I disagree with. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Like,
yeah.
hey, bro, like, where'd you serve? You're a Navy pilot? He's like, yeah, I was a Navy pilot. I was like, cool, fist bump. Well, that's awesome, man. Like,
yeah, that's what's up.
That's what's up. Like, I'm glad that we live in a country where we can have an open disagreement about things and we can have a discourse. But at the end of the day, man, I did what I felt was right. And these are my values, and this is what I do. And he's like, well, okay, I actually kind of I think that's cool. I was like, all right, great. But he's like,
great.
I've never had this like I've never had one person
like
come up to me and face to face. But I do meet 99 out of 100 guys. I met 3 people in Bozeman, Montana, the last time I was there, in my airport that said, I had a guy come up to me and go, you saved my fucking life.
Oh, dude, that's
He's
awesome.
like,
wow.
You guys doing what you do, and like a huge reason, like the only reason I do this is so other vets know, like, listen, dude, if my knuckle dragging ass can start a company in my garage that eventually in 9 years goes from my garage to the New York Stock Exchange where I hired 900 veterans or 900 people with a 50% hiring rate for veterans, where I can give $3.5 million a year back to vets. That's the reason. I lead by example. Like, don't listen to what I fucking say. I'm fairly incompetent at most everything, actually. But I'm decent. I'm decent at like building a company and building a good culture of people. And it's like, I give a ton of shit back, and I love doing it. It's awesome. Like, you can't take any of this stuff with us. It's easier to get a camel through an eye of a needle than it is a rich man to get into heaven. Something
like that.
Variant of that.
Yeah.
So it's like, we got a very finite amount of time here. The direct impact that we make across the board was like having great conversations like this, like seeing like you've had this like wildly interesting life. Like, I've never been shot. Fuck, what's it like? Like, I've read and heard, and I've like heard thousands of stories, and I've read lots of stories about, the World War II vets that got, shot in, whether that's like Iwo or Peleliu or fucking Normandy or France. And it's always the same description. It feels like it's like getting hit with a baseball bat, like where, either bones are breaking or they're not breaking. You look down and it's a very similar description, but I don't know if too many people have been shot and then they have to get up and move. And then the psychological circumstance of not having the big green machine behind you, the logistics of getting yourself from point A to point B with the Iraqi Army and then out and then back home, all the while, like, you used to have the big machine.
Yeah.
Now you don't have it.
You got nothing.
You got nothing, man. Like you hanging it out there. Like, I kept thinking about this while you were talking. It was like, your fucking brain would be interesting. Not like a psycho, not like in a psycho way where I want to like chop your brain and look at it. I'm like, no, under a microscope. Like, when you think about myelination and the development of your experiences and what that culminates into, what you have in your head is so interesting, because there's fractional, like we're talking about millionths of the population that have ever experienced anything of what you've experienced, whether that's like being raised in America, joining a spec ops unit, but now puts you into a very unique category of people that have been shot that have also had to move off the X. And then on top of that, the fact that you're like logistically supporting yourself, and you had the additional layer of the psychological enhancement of that fucking event of knowing no one's going to help you. You got to help yourself. Yeah. Like, whatever you got going on in there, like whatever's cooking around in that fucking gray matter of yours is pretty damn interesting, because whatever's making you up, whatever's making that tick, I don't know. You should probably try to fucking put a study behind that. Like, that's what people need to fund. Like, what's going on in that head to figure out how you can put that out. Yeah. And I mean, to be fair, like, other guys that are struggling, like, our peer group of the GWOT veteran, like, they're struggling. They're struggling with substance abuse and psychological abuse, or psychological issues and substance abuse and suicide. And it's sad. Like, and it does depress me. Like, it does. It really affects me more than anything else in the war that I have ever had to deal with, is the guys that are struggling alone, that they need help. Like, and that's literally why I do this.
Yeah. And I've wondered that as well. Why the veteran suicide rate in particular is so high, because in reality, when you look at it, it's not like combat veterans who are committing suicide at high rates. It's veterans. It's people who are just in the military. Yeah. And so you realize, I think a lot of it has to do with loss of community and whatnot. And that's a whole other discussion to have that I'm not an expert on. But yeah, just like maybe a month and a half ago, I got word buddy of mine that I'd been in the teams with killed himself, and I was like, man, and then 2 months or a couple months before that, another guy who I wasn't like directly like friends with, but we were on the same team. He was a different platoon, but one of the platoon leaders, an officer, he just killed himself in front of his family. And you're going,
no, that's the worst.
Yeah, and you're going what is that? What's that that's going on? And for me, I was, when I was going through my dark phase, I mean, the suicidal ideation went through my head. Luckily, I never was in a position where I was actually really, really considering it, but just the thought went through my head, because when you're at the bottom and you feel like everything in life is failing and you're alone and you're isolated, and it's rough. So for me, when I was on Andy Stump's podcast back in March, and that's when I first opened up about, for example, the obesity thing. I gained 100 pounds, dude, and I was so ashamed of that. And I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell anybody because I was so ashamed. And but I thought, I was like, no, dude, there's guys out there who are dealing with the same thing. Guys are, I was dealing with addiction. I was literally addicted to bread and stuff. So I had to go through Russell Brand's. I read Russell Brand's book about addiction. Really? And and that's what did it. It's basically the 12 steps, AA 12 steps, but Russell Brand's version. So it's much more digestible and hilarious.
It's
it
less
worked.
Religious based. It's more like
he goes through the actual 12 steps and shows you what the actual 12 steps are, but then he puts his own twist on it. So number one is whatever the first step is, do you realize that you have a problem and that your creator is the only one who can help you, or something, or whatever the first step is. But Russell Brand's version, he's like, so the way I say it is, are you a bit fucked? Number one, and that's what it's, and then point number two, do you want to be unfucked? And so it's just fantastic. I listened to the audio version of it, and it's fascinating stuff. So it's anytime I hope that any of the struggles that I've been through, any of the weird stuff that I've gone through, other guys, like Andy Stump says, is I've done more than some, less than others. And so those other guys have been through way worse stuff. And it's I hope that guys can see hey man, if you are that dude that's 100 pounds overweight, wanting to off yourself and you're hating life, it's dude, that's not you, man. And you can get help and just don't give up. That's the thing. Don't give up. What ended up helping me the most was, I don't know if we talked about this on air before we were talking, but basically, I went and sat for a month in Florida, and I just stared at the ocean, man. And it really helped me get my mind right, because you got to get out of that environment. And I know there's a lot of really good veterans groups out there that do retreats and things for veterans. And I'm like, dude, go to one of those, because that's basically what I did without realizing. I basically did my own veteran retreat, and I went and just got alone and got out of the sort of the vicious cycle that I was in. And so that's what you have to do. You have to get out of that vicious cycle so you can see clearly. When you're in the middle of it, it's hard that you got those blinders on. You can't see clearly. Step out of it, and then you can see yourself better.
I think guys have to just the thing that I don't understand is, especially guys in our community, I don't understand why they're so committed to going through these selection processes where quitting is not an option.
Yeah.
And now quitting becomes an option all of a sudden.
You're quitting. Yeah.
That's not okay. Because to be fair, we would not only psychologically humiliate people that were quitters. This was so toxic. You didn't want to be near other people that were quitters. You couldn't be around them, period.
Yep.
And so for me, I look at the peer group and I go, why are you now quitting? You've gone through all the selection, you've done everything, and now you decide that this is an option for you to quit, versus saying, just go try 100 different things. Who cares? Go to Mexico and do ayahuasca, go to fucking Panama and do a bunch of cocaine. I don't fucking care. But try it all. Read the Bible, read the Quran, do whatever it is that you need
anything
to do.
other than
anything other than
killing yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different people that that you're going to provide like a direct value in their lives, regardless. It's like you could think of yourself as the biggest pile of human shit ever, but you can still create value in other people's lives. It's like you can go and volunteer every day and just try to plug in and create value with other people. And I talked to my buddy Clint Trial quite a bit about this. He's a bilateral amputee. He's a former Force Recon guy that worked at the office for a while. And, you know, if that guy's upbeat, you know, he'll call me like, hey man, how you doing? I'm like, fuck you. Why are you calling me and asking me how I'm doing? Like, how are you doing, man? Like, but that's the guy that, you know, if he's calling me, asking me how I'm doing, I need to be calling 10, 15, 20 guys a week going, how are you doing? And for us to just kind of give up, like it kind of goes back to that whole thing of like, well, you know, the hate or whatever, like, yeah, man, bring it on. Like, I don't care. I'm not some fucking, you know, weak quitter that's going to be like, give up. I'll triple, quadruple down. Like, yeah. Because you know why? Because man, you got to lead by example. Like if I quit now, I have literally betrayed every piece of my fucking DNA and everything that I've built around my entire life from the time that I could comprehend the English language until today. Not going to happen.
Exactly.
So it's like, we can't do it to our peer group. It's like, if you don't have the fucking strength, if you don't have the wherewithal, find it from other people and like just get the job done. And that's why, like, I hear it, man. I hear it, and it pisses me off. Like, I hear guys like, they'll mudsuck guys like Goggins, and I'm like, I don't know Goggins at all. Like, I don't know him from Adam, zero. But I don't care what he did in the teams. I don't care what he did in the military.
He's doing extremely positive things right now. It's like,
all he's doing for the community is plugging in and telling people a message that they need to hear. Suck it the fuck up. Harden up. Like, do 1,000 pull-ups. Whatever it is, like, suck it up. Suck it up, buttercup. Like, so I don't care. I don't know Goggins from Adam. I don't know him, what he did in the teams. I don't care what he did in the teams. You know what I do? You know what I love? In fact, there's somebody out there that's putting that message in people's ear 365 days a year.
Yeah, I was talking with a guy in San Diego, a civilian guy, and it was a personal trainer. I was working with him, and he you know, he's like, oh, I saw in your paperwork like you were a SEAL. I was like, that's so cool. He's like, did you know like Goggins or anything? And I was like, oh no, I've never met Goggins or anything. And he was like, and he just went off, and he was like, dude, like, that's so awesome. I love the content that he puts out and all this other stuff. And like I said, I've never met Goggins either, but I'm like, yeah, dude, like this guy, his life is changed. It's like the way he views the world is more resilient. It's tougher. And I'm like, that's awesome. Like that's a positive thing because I've seen some of the public stuff.
We've all heard it, right?
But you're like, but who cares? But who cares?
And I'm just like, I shut it down instantly.
Exactly. And that's like, it's like, who cares? Like, look at the positivity of what you got going on. And that's the thing. And I think,
I've heard it about everybody, by the way,
dude.
Like, it doesn't matter.
No
you know,
doubt.
like every fucking guy, every vet, especially every soft vet, every vet, like they all throw fucking mud at everybody else. Like, I hear it about whether it's like Jocko on one end or Goggins or Andy or me or Matt. Like, I heard it about everybody. I've heard it. Of course. I've heard it from guys that I was like, I've heard this like rumor or whatever, right? It's like, Evan was a dirtbag SF guy. I'm like, fucking goddamn right I was. Like, I'll be the first guy to tell you I was. Like, you know, the thing you're not going to hear me or hear from anybody that ever went to combat with me, they'll never fucking hear that I'm a coward.
Exactly.
You can tell me, you can say all the other things that you want to fucking say about me, like I didn't show up on time, I was a fucking asshole. Like, you can say all you know, the one thing you will not be able to fucking find is a guy that was ever in a gunfight with me that will call me a coward. You know why? Because it doesn't fucking exist.
And that's the only thing that matters.
And that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, personal reputation, you can call me any and all things that you want to. You'll never be able to call me that.
Yeah, and you know, in my own sort of micro version of you know, obviously you've become very prominent and successful. It's like, for me, it's like I've had like a little bit of that, and it's like, and then hearing just like the hate sometimes, like through the network of like guys, and you're like, dude, like that's not even true. Like what are you talking about? Some stuff's true, like, you know, like yeah, man, like, you know, some stuff's true, but some stuff is just they just make it up.
They just make it up. Like, dude, shit makes it like. Yeah. Mike Glover and I were talking about this the other day. It's an awesome friend of mine. Like Mike and I, like, because Mike.
Did you guys know each other from like
I knew him from the CIA?
Oh, okay,
I put
awesome.
him through vetting actually.
Oh, no kidding. That's great.
Yeah, so it was like somebody was telling me, they're like, well, Mike didn't go to he wasn't a CAG, and I was like, he's never said that. He's never said that he went multiple times and corrected that. Like not only corrected that, but he's like, he always puts it out that he did and did that. I'm like, no, he has never done that. Actually, like he has said the exact opposite 150 times.
Yeah.
Like, in the fact that you guys are going, like they were having this like tactical argument about like he was in CAGs or he wasn't a CAG operator, so he can't put out tactical advice. I'm like, that guy was a Special Forces Command Sergeant Major that had been in multiple different units. And the fact that you think that now he can't give tactical advice because he wasn't a CAG operator is so absurd to me that I'm like, those guys do not have like a monopoly on tactics. And I'm like, okay, well.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it comes from because I've gotten hate a couple times from a couple different guys, and what I realized in hindsight, it was jealousy. It was guys. It was envy, and it's like
jealousy, envy, greed. Those are the three things.
Yeah,
right?
and then I always try to look at that and I try to apply that to myself because like sometimes like even in my own head I'll be like I'll start thinking negatively about one thing or the other, and 99.9% of the time I'm just jealous. I'm just envious. That's it. And I'm like and then I catch myself and I'm like, you know what, dude, get on that guy.
I will be the first guy to tell you, Jocko is one of the worst people I've ever seen in a wind tunnel.
Well, rocks don't do well.
He tries to grapple the air.
It's like a giant stone.
But he is one of the nicest human beings I've ever been around. And honestly, like I got one negative thing to say about him. Like it's he in the wind tunnel. I don't know why he tries to choke the air out, but he does. But he's like a fucking awesome dude.
Yeah,
and it's like every one of these guys, man. Like I meet him. Like it doesn't really matter. Like Rob O'Neill got in like that thing, like the guy that's like saying that he killed bin Laden or whatever, and and then he got rolled up for slapping some guy in a hotel last week, which I thought was super funny because
I've been tracking it.
Once again, like I'm not tracking, I just got sent it. Rob O'Neill or whatever. Everybody's like in this kerfuffle around Rob. This is what the guy gets for saying this. I'm like, Rob's always been such a fucking nice guy to me, and I don't really care. I don't care who shot bin Laden. Honestly, there's probably 20 dudes on that raid that as they're walking up the stairs put a fucking bullet in his head because that's what you do.
Yep.
So
double tap.
Just so you know, like don't care. I don't care who the first guy was. I don't care who the last guy was. And I sure as shit don't care who fucking put him in the ocean.
Yeah.
He's dead. That's what I care about. That's like the thumbs up A-OK thing that I got going on.
Yeah.
And I just think it's like so funny that people can get so spun up over, well, a great example is like people get all fucking wound up over little nitnoy horseshit. Like what tourniquet's the best one, for instance, right?
Oh, right. Guys, like, I've only seen memes. I've seen like memes of stuff and I'm like, dude, like, I don't care, man.
He's like,
whatever you got, use it, man.
Hey, you got a belt? You got a belt and a stick?
Yeah.
You got a cravat and a stick. You got this, you got that. Like, hey man, does it do the thing that you're asking it to do? Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Right. It's like firearms. I told people this the other day. I was like, hey man, I don't care how the shovel is made or the manufacturer. Does it dig dirt? That's basically the way that I look at guns. I got ones that I like shooting and they're a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, when I was working, I was like, here's your shovel, go to work. I wasn't going, I got to take a couple pounds off that trigger because this is what I got to do to fucking
like trick it out. Yeah,
I got to trick out my shovel.
Yeah, exactly. So just take whatever you got. I was thinking one interesting thought I had about guys in PTSD. Well, not PTSD, but like the suicide thing. I think one of the most important things is guys need to find a purpose. Yeah. Whether it's building a company, a family, whatever. It's all about finding a purpose. And the reason I bring that up is so my interpreter who was killed a few months ago, in the years before that when I'd been working with him and even up until like days before he died, he would always say, I was like, thank you. They say tra means direct translation is teacher. Thank you. Right. But that's how they say sir. It's like thank you for being here and helping us. Thank you. You're doing a lot of good stuff. And he would always say, we really need you. We really need you. And I would always tell him, I was like, dude, I need you just as much as you need me. And he didn't understand what I meant by that. But what I meant was like, dude, like you guys are my purpose. I love you guys and I'm here to help you and I'm pouring my heart and soul into you. And so in my darkest times, a lot of times that was what kept me going. Was I knew, hey, but there's someone who's depending on me. There's someone who needs me, and so I had a purpose. I had a reason to keep going. So I think a lot of guys, if they're struggling with stuff, find that purpose, and you got to humble yourself. You got to walk into some place and be like, hey man, I want to volunteer or whatever. Like, the ego, yeah.
Like I always tell people, like business, I've told them this, like, you have to sacrifice your ego on the altar of business, but you really have to sacrifice your ego on the altar of life.
Every day.
It's actually like that. It's much bigger than that. My kids, to your point, it's like purpose. It's like, I have the veteran community, I have the company, I have my family, I have my kids. Like I've got so many layers of purpose where it's not an option and it doesn't even sneak into my psyche. And more importantly, like I build redundant layers of firewalls to make sure that it doesn't even sneak into my psyche from the negativity that I've been, exposed to in my past, which is like, I don't have substance abuse issues and I make sure I don't fucking do it. Right.
Yeah.
I got my appendix taken out a couple years ago and I just sucked it up as like Tylenol 3, man.
Yeah.
Like there's
like,
nothing.
don't give me anything,
There's
man.
nothing. Like, it's like, hey, I will fucking, put a piece of leather in my mouth and I'll grunt through it. Like I stopped drinking just about a year ago when one of my really close friends killed himself because of that. And it's like, I'm not going to allow anything definitively, I will not allow a poison or something toxic to spill in and quite possibly interrupt what I'm trying to achieve, specifically when it's related to purpose. And the other thing is, I'm not a wealth-driven person. I don't really I'm not materialistically driven. So I'm a capitalist in the sense of like, I like building things. I like
the process of building is what's fun.
Yeah. So like, it doesn't matter to me. So it's like, it's super funny. Guys are like, oh my, whatever it is, whatever thing that they're spinning up. It's like, man, I spent most of my life living in a shipping container on a cot. Whatever I got right now is like way more than I ever thought that I would have. So you can't really do a whole lot. Like it's pretty cool, man. Like, man, I got this Garmin watch. It's and I got the same Rolex that I bought in Bahrain on my way out of Iraq on my first deployment.
Oh, nice. Manama.
And my first deployment in 2004, I bought it. It was $4,500. I still have the same Rolex watch that I bought then. That's great. But I'm like, hey man, drive a F-150. I still go back and forth, same house I've had for fucking years. Like nothing's changing, dudes.
Yeah. And I think guys start chasing the sort of end goal. Everybody thinks like the mountaintop is the goal, but it's like, no, dude, it's really is about the climb. For me, it's like obviously on a much smaller scale. It's like I'm building this organization, and it's been so much fun from $0 to millions of dollars, being able to go in and then help people with this money, being able to raise this kind of this money and stuff. And to your point, the building process is the fun part. For me, I find a lot of joy in that, building an organization, hiring new employees, expanding, being able to do what we're doing. Being able to do what we need to do. It's great. Like there's a team, like I said, in Mozambique right now. I'm not there. Like this is the first time I've like full on like sent a mission without me there. And it's really cool that it's like now we're at the point, because that was my goal back in 2016. I was in Thailand. I had the thought for what I do now. I had the idea to do this. I didn't know what it was going to be named or what it was going to be called, but I remember seeing just our platoon just being so demoralized. And I knew that we're on the Thai-Burma border. We're a 3-hour helicopter ride away from villages where people are being raped and murdered. And I was like, man, I got to start something so I can hire guys with my background to go in and help these people.
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's come full circle where it's like, now there's guys out there in the field and I'm not there. I'm here. And it's cool. Cause like talk about purpose, talk about building. That's where the real joy comes from, is making something happen, not giving up and just continuing to work toward it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like great podcast. Where can everybody find you again?
So if people want to check out our organization, strongholdrescue.org, they can go on there if they want to sign up and be a donor. And then if people want to check us out on social media, it's at Stronghold Rescue. And then like my personal social media is just at Ephraim Mattos.
Cool. Thanks, Ephraim.
Awesome.
Appreciate it, man.
Appreciate you.